Hello, Petra, just to check whether your microphone is sound and your camera's working okay.
Hello?
I think the Secretary General's connected, so just to see if you
Okay.
can test better.
Professor Tellis, would you like to test your microphone and camera? You're still muted. I will ask you to unmute and start the video.
Yeah, he may be away from his screen at the moment, so maybe just wait for a few minutes.
Okay.
And once we get the other speakers, just especially Madame Balsena and Mr. Purnell, Charles Purnell as well.
Okay. Mr. Lavelle, are you there? If you're there, can we test your connection, please?
Yeah, I'm here. I can see you perfectly.
Okay. Okay, your sound is good. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in a different position than I was.
Yeah, you said that, yes.
Yeah, I'm in another location, but it's better.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, the sound is better. Thank you. Thanks for testing.
Can you tell me if the video is okay?
Yes, video is okay. And the sound is
Perfect.
good too. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Good morning.
Hello. Hello, Rodney.
Hi, Alsane.
Okay, I just would like to check if Rodney is connected. Okay, hello, Rodney.
Hi, Jose.
How are you?
Nice to see you.
I
Very well,
would
thank you.
I would like to let you know that we have one colleague interpreter who will be working from Portuguese into English. Whenever the minister or any high level or delegate or expert would like to talk in Portuguese, just reassure our colleagues that they can be interpreted or translated into English. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We informed this to the Minister of Brazil. She will be the only one to speak in Portuguese. So she's well
Okay,
informed.
and we
about this.
will be covered. She will be translated into English.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a nice meeting. Bye.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Bye.
Minister Christine is here.
Thank you.
Minister Christine? If you're there, can we test your connection? Mr. Christina, if you're there, can we test your microphone and camera?
Señora Ministra Cristina, buenos días. ¿Podríamos hacer el test de audio y video, por favor?
Just to check, Petri, whether you can we can hear you okay.
Yeah, so
Perfect.
it's fine.
Yes, perfect. No, loud and clear. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you. Just to check whether we have Mr. Purnell on the line, Charles Purnell Jr.
No, we don't. No.
You just watch out for that because
Yeah, of course.
the presentation.
Okay.
And we're just trying to check with also Madame Bassena as well.
Exactly.
Just a message. Thank
I
you.
will keep my eyes on.
Hello, Mr. Holness. I see that you're connected. Could I just check whether your camera and microphone are working okay? Mr. Andrew Holness, Prime Minister.
Good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir. Would you like to just activate your camera just to see if we can?
Well, actually, this is Minister Charles. I'm actually
Yes, Minister. Hello.
I'm wondering why I'm coming up as the Prime Minister.
That's fine. No, you may have had a
I was explaining to
motion, but you can change the name, I think, on the screen. If you go to the right-hand corner of the window on your screen, you can rename it there. Or I think maybe our colleagues could do that.
Give me a moment. Let me try and sort it out.
Thank you, sir. So good morning, good afternoon to all participants to this high-level launch of the report of the state of the climate in Latin America, Caribbean, and the high-level conference working together for weather, climate, and water resilience in Latin America and the Caribbean. My name is Paul Edgerton. I'm the Director of Cabinet for the WMO Secretary General, and I'll be moderating this event during today. And we'll have several high-level speakers and also some chairs of various segments. As this is a virtual event, there may be some points where we may need to have a slight pause depending upon if there are any connection problems or if we have a sequence issue. So please bear with us on that. So first of all, special thanks to all of the speakers for your valuable participation in this event today. Latin America and the Caribbean region are amongst the regions most challenged by extreme hydrometeorological events. And between 1998 and 2020, climate-related and geophysical events resulted in about 312,000 lives lost and affected more than 277 million people. Also, the floods, storms, droughts, heat waves, and related impacts accounted for about 93% of all disasters that took place during this period, and you'll hear some detailed presentation on these figures in a moment. The Latin America and Caribbean region faces and will continue to face also severe socio-economic crisis due to the extreme hydrometeorological events. And in recent times, this has also been exacerbated by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And the post-COVID-19 recovery will be challenging. One critical action to ensure recovery will be to further pursue Sustainable Development Goal 13 to take urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts, which according to the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean has been decelerated in many countries of the region. One way further action is to strengthen partnerships with national early warning systems and operational weather, climate, hydrological services. This high-level conference is jointly hosted by the WMO Regional Associations 3 and 4, and also ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We're very pleased that the Executive Secretary of ECLAC can also join us today. It's been designed to share opportunities and challenges with development partners and other organizations in identifying feasible ways to join forces and coordinate actions for the benefit of the most vulnerable communities. So first of all, I'd like to introduce the Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, Professor Petri Talas, who will give you a keynote presentation on the state of the climate for Latin America and the Caribbean. So Professor Talas, over to you.
Thank you, Paul, and dear Alicia, it's a pleasure to have you on board with us, and dear ministers, it's also a very great pleasure to have you present at this event, and dear colleagues, welcome to this event also on behalf of WMO Secretariat. So I will show you some slides concerning our report, and this is very much complementary material to the IPCC report that was published 2 weeks ago, and of course IPCC is having this global perspective, but here we have very much the perspective of Latin America and Caribbean. And first, I would like to thank many scientists both at our secretariat and also external experts who have been contributing and compiling this report. So now I will show you what we have learned by compiling this report, and what is the status of climate today, and finally I will tell you something about the future and what kind of impacts we expect to see because of climate change in the future. Can I get the next slide, please? So some numbers, first of all, what we know about these persons who have been compiling this report. From WMO side, we have a long history in publishing a global status of climate reports on annual basis, but now we have decided to publish also reports in various regions, and we have already published one for Africa and one for Pacific, and this is our third regional report. And we have, as you can see, we have had 50 experts who are behind this report, and we have 33 international regional organizations who have been contributing, and we are also very grateful for our sister organizations who have been working together with us. Next, please. So, of course, we talk very much about global warming in English language, but you will soon see that there are many other parameters that are important besides temperature only. But temperature is a clear indicator, and since we don't have very much reliable data from the 19th century from this region, that's why we are using 81 to 2010 as a reference period, and you can see that we have seen already 0.8 degrees warming in Mexico and Central America, and 1 degree in Caribbean, which we are above the normal. And last year was the second warmest year in South America, and we were 0.6 degrees above the long-term average. In the Northern Hemisphere, the numbers are a little bit higher. We have more continents, and also the impact of Arctic is more visible, and whereas in southern part of the planet we have more oceans, and also this Antarctic area hasn't been warming as much as the global average, and that's why the numbers are somewhat lower there. Next, please. And here we have more region-specific information, and you can see reddish dots which indicate above normal temperatures last year, and then you have also bluish dots which are especially visible in eastern part of Brazil, where we were a little bit below the long-term long-term average. But of course, the overall story is that we are very much above the normals, and especially in southern and central part, we were 1.5 degrees above the average. Next, please. And as I said, temperature is not the only parameter. It may be that there are other parameters which have had more impact on human life and nature than just the changes in temperatures. Glaciers have been losing mass worldwide, and this is also the case in this region. In tropical areas, we have lost 0.71 meter of water melted per square meter of surface, and it's about the same in dry Andes, and in the central Andes a little bit less. And in the graph you can see that this melting of central Andes, especially where we have records since 76, there has been an acceleration in the melting of that glacier, and that's bad news when it comes to availability of water for the main rivers, and we know that some areas like Peru is very much dependent on this water, which is melting from the Andean region, and in cities like Lima, we would really be in trouble if this would stop. And unfortunately, this seems to be the case, that glaciers are melting with a higher speed, and according to recent IPCC report, this is not supposed to stop during the coming decade, independent of our success in climate mitigation. Next, please. Sea level rise is also one of the parameters, an important parameters, and also the sea level rise has been speeding up during recent decades. During last century, we typically had 1 to 2 millimeters per year sea level rise, and you can see that now we are ranging between 4 and 2.5, 2.6 millimeters per year. And the ocean currents are having, they're affecting this, and that's why we haven't seen steady numbers everywhere. So there's a slight difference between Atlantic and Pacific, and also different parts of the region. But the overall story is that we have seen an increase in the speed of sea level rise. Next, please. And then these sea surface temperatures, we have had a strong positive anomaly, especially in the Caribbean, and the southern hemisphere was last year very much dominated by La Nina, which meant colder ocean temperatures than average, and last year we also had record amount of hurricanes in the Caribbean, and the forecast for the forthcoming season is that we expect to see more active than normal hurricane season, and this is a combination of La Nina and Atlantic warm pool phenomena. Next, please. And as I said, we broke the amount of hurricanes record last year, where we had 30 hurricanes in Caribbean, and here you can see two of the strongest ones, Eta and Iota, which were both category 4 hurricanes, and they were altogether 8 million people who were affected, and we lost 1 million hectares of crops, or they were at least damaged because of those two strong hurricanes. Next, please. And drought is also one of the parameters, and this is already a challenge in Latin America and Caribbean, and I will soon show you some some scenarios for the future, and it seems that that's going to be happening also during the coming decades, or in the worst case, coming centuries. And we had extreme drought in 1/3 of Mexico last year, and in Bolivia and Chacho and Pantanal, we had the most severe drought in 60 years, and then we had mega drought in central Chile, which has already lasted for more than a decade. Next, please. And this drought is often leading to forest fires or peat fires, and there was a very severe forest fire in Pantanal region in Brazil, which is the world's largest tropical wetland area, and the burn area was 4 times larger than the long-term average for the past 20 years. Next, please. And we have already seen impacts on crop yields in the whole region, and the future doesn't look very promising. And the yields are, we expect that they will decrease further in the future, and we are going to be exposed to more freshwater stress because of climate change, and this climate change, these changes in precipitation patterns and soil moisture, they may have bigger impact than just temperature changes. And by mid this century, there's an estimation that there would be a 6% decrease in the major crops, and you can see the various major crops here, and you can also see various regions indicated by dots, and in some cases we expect to see positive changes, but on the average we expect to see negative changes, a decrease in the crop yields. Next, please. And climate change is also having impacts on forests and ecosystems, and of course the human activities are also having big impact on the amount of forests, and this area is very critical globally, because it's 57% of the world's remaining primary forests are located in this area, and what kind of human impact there's going to be in the future, that's critical for the whole climate mitigation question worldwide. And you can see that there has been a loss of forest area in South America. There has been a slight decrease in that loss during the past 10 years, but it has been altogether exceeding the forest loss in Africa, which is the second largest area globally, where we have seen a decrease in the amount of forests. In other parts of the world, we have seen even slight increases in the amount of forests. Next, please. And now I will show you some scenarios for the future, and we already know that what IPCC said 2 weeks ago when we published the report, and the statement is that it's virtually certain that warming will continue everywhere in Central and South America, and there's high confidence that by the end of the century, most regions will undergo extreme heat stress conditions much more often than in the recent past, and that means that we will see more warm days, we will see more warm nights, and we will see less cool days, and we will see less cool nights than before. Next, please. And this sea level rise is expected to continue for the coming centuries anyhow, and that's bad news. So we cannot stop that by being successful in mitigation efforts, and what we also expect to see in the future, we expect to see more often these most intense category 4 and 5 tropical storms, but according to recent IPCC report, we are not expecting to see increase in the number of those hurricanes especially, but we expect to see increase in the number of most intense ones. Coastal erosion and shoreline retreat will continue. We expect to see also more often coastal flooding because of this overall sea level rise. Ocean continue to become more acid because 1/4 of the carbon that we are emitting to the atmosphere is taken by oceans, and that's why we changed the chemical composition of seawater. And we expect to see also increase in the marine heat waves and also coral bleaching, which is also related to temperature increases in the seawater. Next, please. And this is a global map. You can see where the continents are here. We have North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Pacific here. And on the left-hand side, you can see both North America, Central America, and Caribbean and South America. And in all of those regions we are talking about today, we expect to see increase in the heat waves, and the confidence is very high. The only exception is going to be the southernmost part of South America, where we are not expecting to see a change. And this is because of the vicinity of Antarctica there. Next, please. And this is an estimate what's going to happen to precipitation by the end of this century. And here we have 3 options. We have this 1.5 degree warming, 2 degrees warming, and 4 degrees warming. And this 4 degrees would mean that we would totally fail in our mitigation efforts. And in all of the cases, you can see that most parts of Latin America and Caribbean, they are expecting to see less rainfall independent of the warming. So that's the case. And of course, if we go to this 4-degree scenario, then it will be even more extreme, especially in the Caribbean and northern part of South America case. And in the lower panel, I think that may be even more interesting set of figures, which is talking about soil moisture, and because soil moisture is the key driver of crop yield, forest fire risk, and also coastal, and also landslides and erosion things. And in all of those cases, in the lower panel, you can see brownish color, which indicates that the soil moisture in all of the climate scenario cases will be drier, and the only exceptions are in central part of central and eastern part of South America, close to Uruguay and area where Buenos Aires is located. But all of the other regions, we expect to see more often drought-related problems. And of course, in the 4-degree scenario, it's a world record of decrease of the soil moisture. And in all cases, this region is globally going to suffer the most. Next, please. And then this ecosystem-based adaptation, that's also one question, and this we have to also pay attention to adaptation and what's going to happen to the vegetation. That's highly important, and especially these mangrove ecosystems are very important for that purpose, and we have already seen a decline of those ecosystems by 20% during the past 20 years. And also we have seen already changes in the coral reefs, and that's very much a consequence of ocean warming and acidification. Next, please. And then we have to, besides climate mitigation, it's important to pay attention to climate adaptation, and that's what's going to be one of the hot topics at the forthcoming COP26 meeting, and we will discuss adaptation means and also how to invest more in adaptation, because the negative trend in climate will continue for the coming decades anyhow, meaning growing amount of climate-related disasters. And from our perspective, it's important that the countries have state-of-the-art early warning service capacities, and here you can see some statistics in Central America and Caribbean. 11 countries have state-of-the-art services, and 2 countries don't have. But in South America, there are already 5 countries that don't have proper early warning services, and this is an obstacle for the adaptation capacity. And then one important component of this early warning service business is what's the status of observing systems. And on the right hand side of this graph, you can see a map of South America with the black dots, and those black dots are indicating stations which haven't been reporting to the global system, which is having a major negative impact on the quality of early warning services, especially in those regions, but also worldwide. And then you have also a map with the colors, and you can see that we have had major gaps in especially northern part of South America and Caribbean, and that's why we have created a new financing initiative called Systematic Observation Financing Facility, where we aim at mobilizing $400 million to improve the situation in the data sparse areas, and that's some parts of Latin America, Caribbean and Pacific Islands, and Africa especially. And then we also urge governments to pay attention to these gaps that exist. Next, please. So with these words, thanks for listening to me, and I'm eager to listen to the other interventions, and also if there are some comments in the chat, we are happy to respond to those. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Professor Talas, Secretary General of the World Meteorological Organization, for presenting those dramatic new figures and climate indicators which are at the heart of this new report. And the presentation will be shared on the website in the coming hours to download as a PDF version. I'd like to move now on to the next speaker in our high-level segment, and we're very pleased to welcome from the Jamaican government the Honourable Purnell Charles Jr., who is the Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, for his statement. And Minister, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. Let me just acknowledge all of our colleagues this morning. Professor Talas, thank you for that wonderful presentation, bringing us into focus. I see online several distinguished guests, a good friend, and Ms. Barcena. I see also that we will have statements from Ms. Vittoria Mani, Ms. Patricia Espinosa, and others. So let me just say good morning to everyone. It's too long a list to specifically say good morning to all the different names, but it is an honor for me to represent our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, as well as the government and people of Jamaica. Certainly, we very grateful to participate in this high-level conference hosted by the World Meteorological Organization, as well as to participate in the launch of the 2020 report of the state of climate in Latin America and the Caribbean, a region which is one of the most vulnerable on our planet. I want to thank the WMO Secretary General, His Excellency Professor Thallas, for the invitation, and also to thank him for his continued leadership in this most important organization. Jamaica's participation at this forum is critical, and we are proud to ably, represented by our own Evan Thompson, who is the director of the Meteorological Service in Jamaica and who was elected recently as president of the WMO's Regional Association 4 in February. So we're very proud of Evan, and he's doing great work in the region and in Jamaica. He's a superstar in Jamaica, actually. I have no doubt that he will continue to provide exemplary service and leadership to this organization. Jamaica, as you know, is among the grouping of small island developing states that are disproportionately affected by global warming and the other impacts of climate change as delineated in the presentation before me. And this is certainly in comparison to the minimal levels of carbon dioxide that we emit. So we are low emitters, but very, very vulnerable. The impacts of climate change have forced us to take a closer look at how we manage our natural resources, as well as how we can adapt our lifestyles with a view to becoming more climate resilient. Some of the impacts of this global phenomenon are being manifested in ways that Jamaica and other states cannot afford, with projections of greater intensification in the future, if the necessary steps are not taken by the global community to mitigate its effects. As we have seen in recent times, Jamaica does not have to be directly affected by a storm system to feel its impacts. The billion-dollar damage done by tropical cyclones in September 2020 to our road and housing infrastructure, as well as the displacement of persons in hazard-prone areas, remains fresh in our minds, even as we continue to be vigilant and take necessary precautions during this current hurricane season. Indeed, the country's geographical location, as well as our heavy dependence on natural resources, makes us particularly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, especially those sectors that are heavily reliant on our natural resources, like the agriculture sector, the water sector, even tourism. In Jamaica, like the rest of the Caribbean, weather and climate affect agricultural production significantly, where rainfall variability results in droughts and floods. Climate change is likely to exacerbate these impacts. And so we take this very, very seriously. The importance of building resilience cannot be overemphasized, particularly with the likelihood of climate change exacerbating natural variability through extreme events. And we know the impact that will have on our economy, our life and livelihood. Goal 4 of our National Development Plan, which is called Vision 2030, specifies the target of a healthy environment with outcomes including the sustainable management of natural resources, hazard risk reduction, climate change adaptation, as well as sustainable urban and rural development. An integrated and targeted approach is required at all levels, international, national, as well as the parish and community levels. The ability then to forecast current and future weather events, in particular the extremes in weather, may help to preserve lives and livelihoods. An increase in awareness, preparedness, prediction, and warning systems can go a long way towards reducing the impacts of climate-related natural disasters on national life. We have been working to identify disaster-prone areas and to incorporate this information into our planning. As such, Jamaica has taken the lead with respect to the generating of weather and climate information, both past and present. Earlier this year, the Most Honorable Prime Minister and I each had the pleasure of separately addressing potential donors at the World Meteorological Organization sponsored first and second founders forums for the Systematic Observation Financing Facility, SOF, which is a critical tool that we can utilize to increase sustainable development and strengthen climate resilience. The SOF is aimed at improving the systems of observation, primarily among least developed countries and SIDS, which will lead to better weather forecast and climate services. It will provide us with access to improved weather forecasts and the climate analysis products, which are critical for managing extreme weather events. The SOF is but one such instrument, but indeed, Jamaica is one of the first countries globally to begin the development of a predictive climate risk assessment planning tool for major infrastructure areas under the Coalition for Climate Resilient Investment. The tool will enable decision makers to assess climate risk to the island's infrastructure and to visualize hotspots of economic and social value that are at risk. And so we are also developing, in addition to those two, a climate change data node, which will efficiently store, manage, and provide access to climate-related data for all users to facilitate planning and to promote sustainable development. And meanwhile, the Meteorological Services Division, which is led by Mr. Evan Thompson, is improving its forecasting ability through the acquisition of technologies such as a Doppler radar and automatic weather stations that will allow it to remotely retrieve and relay information about the existing weather in real time to a monitoring platform within their offices and also on their mobile devices. Of course, these initiatives are not being narrowly pursued only for our own self-interest, but data will be freely shared with others in the region and globally according to the WMO recommendations for the global good. In the area of climate services, we also have a new bushfire warning index product that is being developed so that the appropriate interventions may be taken to mitigate such hazards. All this is facilitated through the collection and analysis of climate data, and its successful implementation will lead to the model being replicated elsewhere within the Latin America and Caribbean region. We have also produced 2 State of the Jamaican Climate Reports since 2012, with a third now being produced by the Planning Institute of Jamaica, which I am sure will be complementary to the report being launched today. So, ladies and gentlemen, great strides are being made, but you can appreciate that much more needs to be done. Our little country is doing its part to steer a shrinking global village away from disaster and towards a brighter future. As such, Jamaica will be participating in a number of important global forums, including the 15th Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, COP15, as well as the 26th Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP26, which are scheduled for later this year. In fact, I recently returned from the high-level ministerial in London, hosted by the President-designate, the Right Honorable Alok Sharma, at which financing for adaptation took center stage. The consensus was that financing needs to be scaled up and to be more accessible. Concerns were also expressed that there is no parity between mitigation and adaptation in respect of climate finance. And while there was consensus on how to achieve this goal, participating countries are open to resolving the matter in the interest of all, particularly for us, the vulnerable countries. It was agreed that the processes of the Green Climate Fund and other financing mechanisms must be amended to make financing more accessible by developing countries. As you all know, the COP16 Accord states that developed country parties commit in the context of meaningful mitigation actions and transparency on implementation to a goal of mobilizing jointly US $100 billion per year by 2020 to address the needs of developing countries. However, SIDS and other developing countries, including Jamaica, are calling for an increase in this commitment in the future to be more in line with the needs on the ground and in keeping with scientific guidelines. In this regard, the findings of the report of the State of Climate in Latin America and the Caribbean 2020 will provide SIDS with the necessary information to support our calls for increased financing, particularly in the areas of adaptation and mitigation, as well as loss and damage. Very, very important. In addition, the launch of the report is important to the assessment of the state of the global climate, and it will most likely be considered in the 6th assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change to be published by 2022. The findings of the report could also support the UNFCCC's negotiations to inform the development of new policies to encourage swifter adaptation and mitigation strategies by governments at the upcoming COP26 in Glasgow. The report also signals the need for climate information to be incorporated in development planning and provides some of the guidelines of planning, but it is also factored into the development goals such as the SDGs and our very own Vision 2030, neither of which will be achievable in their timeframes without factoring in climate information. So as I close, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought many challenges, but it has also provided us with the opportunity to rethink our approach to climate resilience. Now is the time. We must now pursue all opportunities to build forward better. I leave you with one last thought, and it is this. We might very well be the last generation that will have the opportunity to do something positive about climate change so that we can leave a healthy planet for the generations yet unborn. I thank you.
So thank you very much, Minister, Honourable Purnell Charles Jr., for the perspectives of the Jamaican government in relation to this report and the socioeconomic impacts and perspectives of your country. Thank you very much. We're running a little bit behind time, and I know that Madame Bassena maybe have another appointment a little later. So I would just ask if it's possible just to change the sequence to go to Madame Bassena now, first of all. Would that be okay, Madame Mizzatori, with you? Just that we thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So, Madame Bassena, Excellency, thank you very much for joining from ECLAC, and over to you for your short intervention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Paul Egerton, and I want to just greet Peter Italas, our very dear colleague from the Meteorological Organization, and Mami Mizzatori. Thank you, Mami, for allowing me to speak first. And of course, I'm going to switch to Spanish if you don't mind, so get ready for the translation if I may. Amigas y amigos, quiero agradecer la oportunidad de participar en el lanzamiento del reporte del estado de clima en América Latina y el Caribe 2020. Este es un reporte oportuno, necesario y pertinente, y debe servir de base para la política pública, para la planificación económica, sectorial y social. Sus hallazgos, junto con el informe del IPCC, confirman la gravedad de la crisis climática y la urgencia para enfrentarla. Presenta con gran claridad que el 2020 fue uno de los años más cálidos en la región, con graves impactos en el retroceso de glaciares andinos, argentinos y mexicanos, y el agravamiento e intensidad de los huracanes, de los incendios forestales y la acidificación de los océanos, con intensas sequías y graves inundaciones, con impacto enorme en la agricultura. La región ya enfrenta una inseguridad alimentaria grave o moderada que afecta a más del 40.9% de la población, o sea, 272 millones de personas. Y los más afectados, querido Pernell Charles, que me agrada mucho saludarte, que es la subregión del Caribe, que presenta 71% de su población en condiciones de malnutrición y desnutrición. En CEPAL hemos insistido, lo que dijo Pearl, en las asimetrías globales frente al cambio climático. La región apenas contribuye con un 8,3% de las emisiones globales. Sin embargo, es altamente vulnerable a su impacto. En los últimos 30 años, el número de desastres naturales se triplicó en el Caribe y las pérdidas económicas asociadas se quintuplicaron. Por ejemplo, la destrucción causada por Irma y María, que resultó en pérdidas de 250% del PIB en Dominica, por ejemplo. La región tiene poca resiliencia y está en riesgo del abastecimiento del agua potable, de producción de energía por la baja en las presas hidroeléctricas y la integridad ecosistémica y la biodiversidad. Más del 80% de la población del Caribe vive en zonas costeras altamente vulnerables y más del 20% de la población vive por debajo de 5 metros del nivel del mar. La verdad, la crisis climática es una de las causas estructurales de la migración del norte de Centroamérica hacia Estados Unidos. La verdad es que también el COVID-19, nosotros hemos analizado que nuestra región es la más afectada del mundo en desarrollo. Así es que hemos, por cierto, contribuido y contribuimos en este reporte con nuestros análisis y evaluaciones económicas de los daños y pérdidas con los DALAS post-desastre para cuantificar los apoyos precisamente que se requieren en la planificación y en las políticas de recuperación más resiliente. Lo hicimos recientemente en los huracanes ETA y IOTA, que costaron $2,000 millones para Honduras y 800 millones para Guatemala. Si los manglares, como dijo Petteri, hubieran estado en pie, el costo hubiera disminuido un 30% en Honduras. Frente a estos impactos, hay que reconocer que el sistema de gobernanza global no ha sido eficaz para movilizar los recursos hacia los países en desarrollo. Y una paradoja que yo quiero señalar aquí es la escasez de financiamiento para la acción climática, especialmente para la adaptación, que esto además agrava la vulnerabilidad de los países, reduciendo su capacidad de financiar sus propias acciones. Fíjense que uno de los efectos inesperados cuya solución es multilateral es la rebaja de la calificación de riesgo por parte de las agencias calificadoras que consideran que la vulnerabilidad climática es un criterio para rebajar la calificación. Y esto tiene consecuencias gravísimas porque aumenta injustamente el costo de la deuda soberana y el pago de intereses para los países en desarrollo que son altamente vulnerables al cambio climático. Esto agrava, por ejemplo, las capacidades del Caribe, de Argentina, de Ecuador, que tienen ya una carga muy pesada por los altos niveles de deuda, una deuda además enraizada en los shocks externos agravados por el impacto de los desastres y las debilidades estructurales, sociales y económicas. Y por cierto, como dicen en el chat, Perú también. A pesar de la urgencia de enfrentar la crisis climática, vemos cómo se nos van cerrando las ventanas. Por ejemplo, los paquetes de estímulo para la reactivación económica post-COVID podrían ser una gran oportunidad para alentar inversiones en sectores con bajas emisiones de carbono, en la promoción de la bioeconomía más resiliente frente al cambio climático. Los países desarrollados han anunciado grandes paquetes de estímulo, 4 billones en Estados Unidos, 750,000 millones en Europa, reflejando expansiones fiscales y monetarias, por cierto, contrarias a la ortodoxia, con compromisos hacia inversiones verdes. En nuestra región, sin embargo, los paquetes de estímulo son menores, en torno a 4,7% del PIB, 211,000 millones de dólares, que no está mal, pero de ellos solo 3,2% serán consistentes con metas climáticas o ambientales. Ahí tenemos que estar atentos porque los acuerdos no están fomentando, digamos, estos anuncios no están fomentando el cambio estructural. Por el contrario, nuestra región se va hacia la reprimarización, al extractivismo nuevamente, sobre todo en Sudamérica. Entonces hay una incoherencia entre la Agenda 2030, el Acuerdo de París y las declaraciones de nuestros países. Además, el esfuerzo fiscal tiene contrapartidas muy negativas. El gasto en protección ambiental ha experimentado un descenso entre 2019 y 2020. El gasto entre 2016 y 2019, el gasto en protección ambiental ya era muy bajo, 0,4% del PIB. Bueno, pues ahora en 2020 se redujo a la mitad, al 0,2%. Y mucho de este gasto, por cierto, apoya los servicios meteorológicos e hidrológicos que forman parte de esta institucionalidad ambiental y están sufriendo recortes presupuestarios pese a la importancia crucial estratégica que proveen. Se trata de medidas que debilitan nuestra capacidad y la capacidad de los estados para cumplir con la institucionalidad y que sea una institucionalidad capaz de pensar a largo plazo y que permita planificar estratégicamente e invertir en conocimiento. Amigas y amigos, quiero dejar en su retina 4 mensajes centrales. Primero, la adaptación es particularmente importante y es urgente para nuestra región con base en el principio de responsabilidades comunes pero diferenciadas. Por eso la comunidad internacional le tiene que dar prioridad al financiamiento de las medidas de adaptación. En CEPAL estamos proponiendo la creación de un fondo de resiliencia del Caribe, muy en línea con lo que acaba de presentar Pernell Charles, que atienda las necesidades de esa región. Y tenemos una propuesta para que este fondo de resiliencia del Caribe se financie en parte con un alivio de $7,000 millones que representa el 12% del total de su deuda externa. Se puede hacer, se debe hacer. Y se deben desarrollar mecanismos, instrumentos similares para Centroamérica, especialmente para el norte de Centroamérica y para Sudamérica. El reporte es claro en las medidas de adaptación que se deben tomar por su región. Tercero, urge fortalecer la institucionalidad que tenga capacidades para recopilar datos e indicadores sobre el riesgo de desastres climáticos con fundamento científico, como nos lo han presentado el día de hoy, y que se anticipe con base en sistemas de alerta temprana. Ahí Mami Misutori puede ser muy importante porque ahí tenemos instituciones, pero hay que fortalecerlas. Centroamérica lo tiene y el Caribe también. Apoyar a las economías de ingreso medio es el cuarto mensaje y nuestra región, que además tiene muchos países de ingreso medio, tienen que tener acceso al financiamiento concesional para articular inversiones que promuevan una recuperación verde, azul, que generen empleo y disminuyan la huella ambiental. Fortalecer la institucionalidad del Caribe y de Centroamérica es esencial. Los servicios e instituciones pueden generar análisis en profundidad que nos permitirán contar con los escenarios a futuro. El cambio climático es disruptivo, no cabe duda, pero ya presenta patrones de variabilidad cada vez más estudiados gracias a la Organización Meteorológica Mundial, gracias a Mami Misutori y a todas las instituciones, al PNUMA, que nos permiten verdaderamente nutrir estos escenarios y diseñar mejores políticas públicas que nosotros en la CEPAL estamos comprometidos a introducir, sobre todo en las políticas económicas y sociales, y favorecer la adaptación oportuna de los procesos de producción y el cambio del modelo de estilo de desarrollo. En este contexto, la Organización Meteorológica Mundial y nosotros, la CEPAL, firmaremos un memorándum de entendimiento. Me alegro por ello. Ya hemos contribuido en este informe que se presenta hoy a través de la Unidad de Evaluación de Desastres y trabajamos de manera coordinada con la Oficina de Naciones Unidas para la Reducción del Riesgo de Desastres en las evaluaciones y daños causados por eventos extremos en los países de la región. Gracias por esta oportunidad. Me alegro de estar aquí y que esto, además, nuestros acuerdos contribuyan a mejorar las políticas económicas, sociales y ambientales. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much. Mami, I greet you. Petteri, I greet you. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Excellency Lucia Balseni, Executive Secretary of the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. We're very pleased to have you here today. Thank you for also your observations on this economic and political issues of the region and the impact of disasters. We saw a very significant earthquake in Haiti in the last few days, and we pass our condolences on to the Haitian government. And I believe that the disasters, both geophysical disasters and hydrometeorological, are impacting the region significantly, as well as COVID. So thank you very much for those observations. You also mentioned about the memorandum of understanding. So we're running a little short of time, but we are signing this memorandum of understanding together. And we have already agreed this MOU, which covers several areas of cooperation, including water, hydrology, weather, climate early warning. And Professor Talas also will be signing on his side. So thank you in advance for this agreement together with WMO. So thank you, Madam Barsena, for your participation today. I would also like to thank very much Madam Mitsutori for changing the sequence today. We're very pleased to introduce the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction and the head of UNDRR for her statement and observations in relation to disaster risk reduction in the region. So, Madam Mitsutori, thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Professor Petri Talas, Secretary General of WMO, Honorable Purnell Charles Jr., Minister of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change, Jamaica, Ms. Alicia Barsena, Executive Secretary of ECLAC, thank you very much for your kind words about our organization, excellencies, colleagues, and friends. So I am delighted to join you today as you launch the report on the state of the climate in Latin America and the Caribbean. It is a crucial report at a critical time, as many of the distinguished panelists have already mentioned. We know that countries in the Americas and the Caribbean face disproportionate socioeconomic and financial risks from intensifying disaster impacts, many of which are undeniably linked to the climate emergency, but also I join Paul in extending my condolences to the people and government of Haiti, because disasters are coming from all sorts of different risks. Extreme multi-hazard disasters are no longer, sadly, a matter of if, but rather when and how many. Nothing undermines sustainable development like disasters. If we want to have any chance of achieving the goals set in various global frameworks, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Paris Agreement, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, we have to look risk in the face, understanding that it is complex and systemic. But we shouldn't be deterred by this, because hazards do not have to become disasters, or at the least major disasters. Risk is reducible, it is preventable, and it can be managed. This is the message that I want to share with you today from the perspective of UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. And what is important is understanding the risk that surrounds us. This is actually the first goal of the Sendai Framework, and it is one of the main areas of focus of our work at UNDRR. And this is why recently we launched our first regional risk assessment report, which looks at better understanding risk in the region of the Americas and the Caribbean. The global picture is very important, but we now need to look more carefully and in detail at the regional pictures. In line with WMO's report launched today, our regional risk assessment report underscores how climate change is exacerbating threats in your region. We are warned of rising temperatures and heat waves, particularly in urban areas. On the other hand, uncertain rainy seasons affect disproportionately small farmers due to increased exposure to drought, which can lead to which is already leading to food insecurity. Furthermore, we have also observed in recent years frequent cyclone occurrences in the Caribbean and Pacific basins, and small island states are facing rising sea levels. All of this has been really detailed in Petri's presentation. It is alarming, but it is the reality. And of course, all of this is overlaid with COVID-19. Now, these events can wreak major havoc if we are not properly prepared. The after effect exacerbates critical socioeconomic conditions in countries already dealing with high level of social vulnerability and great exposure. And for this reason, one of the 7 global goals of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, it is calling national and local governments to develop evidence-based, multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder disaster risk reduction strategies and plans. Because if you do not have a plan, if you do not have a strategy, you cannot deal with these risks. However, designing these strategies to avert, reduce, and manage risks, losses, and damages, it is very challenging when you don't have the appropriate information, data, and capacities. It is crucial to draw on, therefore, on the work of experts, decision makers, and practitioners from the global, regional, and national levels to promote the importance of and how best to invest in improving climate and disaster risk governance and risk management. UNDRR, WMO, ECLEC, we are all committed to this. And this first WMO report on the state of the regional climate for Latin America and the Caribbean 2020 presents critical information and analysis of the past events, on the present realities, and it also looks ahead at future scenarios to better understand the challenges and opportunities to reduce climate-related risks and to build resilience. The report will be a valuable contribution to the ongoing work of the issue-based coalition on climate change and resilience in Latin America and the Caribbean, which Ms. Alicia Barcela leads. The report will help the 15 UN agencies that make up the coalition to think through what data is telling us about underlying causes of climate risks and how to identify long-term sustainable solutions. Understanding risk must be combined with accelerated progress in the development and use of remote sensing early warning systems and better availability of meteorological and climate data for impact-based forecasts. And here, on the ground, the interaction and collaboration between the national disaster management agencies and the national meteorological and hydrological services in each and every country in the region becomes absolutely critical to ensure a consistent assessment of climate risks and enable timely decision-making. One of the critical lessons that we have learned from COVID-19 is the need to improve multi-sectoral collaboration and coordination to generate scientific evidence that in turn informs decision-making. The role of the science and technology community is particularly relevant to build the needed evidence, to strengthen data collection mechanisms, to improve loss in data, damage databases, to enhance multi-hazard early warning systems, and to guide each and every government to clearly integrate disaster risk information into their development planning. To this end, knowledge-based partnerships and initiatives across the UN system between the public sector, science and technology sector, the private sector, academia, as well as civil society and community-based organizations are crucial to support coherent, risk-informed development based on innovative solutions. So accordingly, WMO's State of the Climate in Latin America and the Caribbean report is an impressive and vital tool in our battle for a safer, more resilient world, and I am delighted to be part of its launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, SRSG Mitsutori, on behalf of WMO and all our partners for the work of UNDRR and your words in terms of looking risk in the face and also looking at how to reduce and manage the hazards that we face globally. And I know that the global platform next year will be an important opportunity for discussion, and also the World Meteorological Day, which take place every year. Next year will be on early warning and early action. And I'm sure there'll be some key messages coming out of also that day. So thank you very much for your intervention and cooperation. So now we've bringing this first high level segment to a close. We'd like to thank all of the speakers in this first segment for their interventions today and their participation in the meeting. At the moment, we have more than 500 participants watching either live via YouTube or via the Zoom link. So we're very pleased with the participation across 53 countries for this event today and broadcast on the WMO YouTube channel. So we're now pleased to start with the high-level segment 2. And the name of this segment is Strengthening Partnership for Weather, Water and Climate Resilience in Latin America and the Caribbean. And to first start with, we have a very well-known expert in our community with extensive experience on climate matters chairing this session, and also a friend, close friend of WMO in the COP meetings also, Mr. Ambassador Carlos Fuller, who is now Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Belize to the United Nations in New York. And Ambassador Fuller will chair this high-level segment. So I would like to hand over now to Ambassador Fuller, who will also introduce this segment and also the speakers. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Dr. Egerton. Distinguished panelists, it is my honor to chair segment 2. In the previous session, Professor Tallers delivered the key messages of the report of the state of the climate in Latin America and the Caribbean 2020. The Honorable Pernell Charles delivered a glimpse of the fantastic support the Jamaica Met Service is providing for the socioeconomic development of Jamaica and the call for more support to developing countries to address climate change. Ms. Mizutori emphasized the challenges for risk management and building climate resilience, taking into account a systemic risk management approach, while Ms. Barcena described the social and economic context in which increased cooperation and partnership are essential to keep the Sustainable Development Agenda moving forward. These key messages provide the context for the discussion in this segment, sharing from different perspectives and experiences how these partnerships may be fostered and strengthened to enhance weather, water, and climate resilience. I would now like to introduce our keynote speaker and the panelists for this session. I would like to remind the audience that the CVs of all the speakers are accessible through the links in the agenda posted on the website. All comments and questions to the speakers must be posted in the chat and will be answered there after their interventions. So, may I first introduce Mr. Dario Soto Abril, the Executive Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of the Global Water Partnership. Ambassador Dr. Walton Webson is the chairperson of the Alliance of Small Island States and permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda to the United Nations. The Honorable Mr. Gustavo Manrique is the Minister of Environment, Water and Ecological Transition of Ecuador. And Ms. Cecilia Jones is the President of PLACA and Coordinator of Sustainability and Climate Change of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries in Uruguay. I would now like to invite Mr. Dario Soto Abril to take the floor. Over to you, Dario.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Fuller. It's an honor to be here with you in this event, and also thank you for inviting me, and welcome to all of the members of the panel as well as the honorable participants. My name is Dario Soto Abril. I am the Executive Secretary of the Global Water Partnership. We are located in Stockholm and we have a worldwide presence. And our mission is to look for a water-secure world, a world in which all individuals, industries, and will have the benefit of the access to water. I'm very happy to be here because also we have a long-standing partnership with WMO, and we have a strong presence in the Central American region and the Caribbean and also in South America. So, and also being Colombian, I'm very, very familiar with the region, and also I love to be in this conference because of that, sharing with many colleagues as well. The next slide, please. So I'll start by sharing with you that in 2020, GWP, the Global Water Partnership, launched its 5-year strategy. And one of the pillars of the strategy, one of our 3 main pillars, is related to climate resilience. We build on the experience since 2013 when we launched our Water, Climate, and Development Program. There we committed to take actions towards climate resilience, and for that, GWP introduced water-specific insights into national dialogues, planning, and investments associated with climate resilience-related development priorities. In this context, and as part of this effort, we're working very hard on including water-informed insights into national adaptation planning. We're also facilitating access to climate finance for resilience building water projects, and we're supporting integrated resilience planning, including in water infrastructure. Of course, as is the norm with all the GWP processes and activities, we do this by involving different stakeholders, many organizations from civil society, from government, from the industry, from the private sector. And we believe by doing so, we are generating and sharing knowledge and promoting coordinated action. Next slide, please. So in 2016, the UNFCCC published a categorization done by GWP on the national determined contributions submitted by different countries. And what is important about this is that such analysis show that 11 out of the 13 of top climate hazards are water related. So we are in the right place talking about this. Water has in fact being considered the top priority sector of the country's NDCs. And what is a bit concerning, or at least a contradiction, is that while countries prioritize water in their NDCs and the national adaptation plans, the investments in water resource management are not advancing fast enough at the right pace to counter or to build rather climate resilience. In fact, an interesting data point, 86% of the NDC delivery is continuing to international support, and only 10% or less has detailed proposals for finance. So this is quite actually concerning for us. And it's a contradiction of, on one side we have the importance of water being recognized, but at the other one, the effort that is put into water related finance is not the right one, or not enough to make a change. So in this context, what GWP, the Global Water Partnership, we are doing is addressing the root causes that we have identified. And some of these root causes related to water and climate finance involve limited governance capabilities, limited technical and analytical capabilities, and limited capabilities to access finance itself. And that is why our ambition as an organization, not only from Stockholm, but in each of the regions we work, including Central America, Caribbean, and Latin and South America, is to support countries to access finance. By doing so, strengthening their integrated water resource management. Next one, please. Now, it's easy to talk about this in very abstract terms, but let's talk about the realities of Latin America, the real challenges, which probably you are as familiar or more than I am. One is the economic and social inequalities, climate change, natural disasters. We just saw what happened in Haiti. We have an earthquake, and then the tropical storm coming. We also have political conflicts and droughts, etc. We also have challenges, as we've seen, and we face that every day in our work with the Global Water Partnership. Is the challenge of coordination and governance at all levels. We have many overlapping actors at the local and the national and even at the regional level, all trying to do fantastic work, but at the same time, it's sometimes difficult to coordinate those efforts, and that in itself becomes a challenge. And the third challenge, which is also not foreign to all of us, is the degree of implementation and resources that are available. So we have, in many cases, not enough resources, but in many other cases, the resources are dispersed, and it's difficult to pinpoint where are they located and how can we really put them together to create or mobilize concrete action. Next slide, please. So what has been the Global Water Partnership response? First, I need to start by saying that we have a wonderful team all over Latin America. So we have a very strong team in Central America. We also have our presence in the Caribbean and also one in South America located in Uruguay. So of course we are present in the region. So we want to show and also base all our actions where the situations are happening. So in this case, in Latin America. But beyond the location of our teams, what we're doing through the teams is creating water-informed insights into national adaptation planning. We're also facilitating or working with the governments and different agencies in facilitating or promoting access to climate finance for resilient building water projects. And finally, we're also supporting integrated resilient planning into the overall scope of the government, but also to society action. So we're working very hard in terms of integrated flood management, integrated drought management, and more generally talking about water infrastructure in this context. The next slide, please. So what has been our experience so far? One, in terms of finances, we are working with the Inter-American Development Bank, the IDB, also with the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center building, trying to work with different countries to facilitate the access to funds from the GCF fund in Latin America and the Caribbean. We're, and I wanted to share something concrete, what we're doing, for example, in the Dominican Republic, in which our Global Water Partnership Caribbean, EWPC, has worked really in tandem with the National Council for Climate Change and Clean Development Mechanism of the Dominican Republic, of course, and also working with funded by the NDC partnership. We there develop a portfolio of bankable investment to finance climate change projects that are priority for the country, for the DR. Those processes, for example, include consultation with communities, with industry leaders, with the private sector, and also involving the local and the national governments. And through that, we were able to build a portfolio that is now ready to be presented to different funding partners who are willing to support projects designed here or based on the needs of the community. So it's really bringing all these parties together. The other work that we're doing is related to gender. And gender, to some extent has become more like a punchline, but it's not. Secretary General Gutierrez from the UN said gender really is, gender equality is fundamental for delivering the promise of our 2030 collective agenda. And at the same time, as we see it from our work, I'm sure you guys have seen it as well, gender and climate has a disproportionate effect or impact on women and children. Some of the evidence or data points that we have there, 14 times more likely than men to die during disasters, which is really a game-changing data point if you analyze it, in the context of what we're seeing in the region. In that circumstance, what we're doing with the GWP is launching the Gender Transformative Water Climate Development Program in the region with the expertise that we're developing with the country. So this is something built with the bottom up, with the expertise with the governments, but also taking into consideration what communities are telling us. And finally, we're working with drought policies together with WMO, which is one of our strongest partners in the region and worldwide. And next, please. So I'm going to stop shortly on this, but in the case of our partnerships, we're working, as I mentioned, being that the philosophy of the Global Water Partnership at all levels, at the regional, national, and local level. So regionally, we're lucky to have partners like the OAS, the IDB, the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center, the Central American Commission of Environment, among others. In terms of national authorities, we have all the ministries, the different agencies in charge of water, the environment, and foreign affairs and finance. And local actors, provincial, municipal authorities based in communities, indigenous communities. And this is quite the role of UWP to bridge the gap between the different levels of work, international, local, and the national ones. And it's not an easy one because it requires UWP to be there in the communities, they're reaching out to the different stakeholders, to the NGOs, to the community leaders, to the companies, and the governments, of course. Next slide. I want to stop briefly on the partnership that we have with WMO. We have a collaboration that started all around 20 years ago with the flood management program. And this has grown to 20 years later. We are very strong in different regions. We do have two very big programs that are based on supporting partners from all around the world who are committed to help countries in their effort to manage floods and droughts as well. So we're tackling two of the most visible, I would say, consequences of climate, which is the flooding and the droughts. And we see that in the region, in Chile, Argentina, and many of the countries of the South, we're seeing these prevailing droughts, but we're also seeing floods in Central America and other parts of the hemisphere. So we see these elements converging in the Americas, and that's why GWP and WMO are acting very collectively on this. Next slide, the final one. So I wanted to leave you with, I don't know if the slide is there, but I want to finalize with some reflections. One is the, some learnings from our end. Governance is about not just the governments, it's about building this whole societal approach in which GWP focuses on bringing all these parties together, local, national, and international actors, but also different transversal actors, NGOs, industry companies, and the governments as well. We also, that in itself requires multi-level coordination, and it's not easy to have just the national authorities or the international reps. We have to have different stakeholders also at the different levels, and the key is integrating them and having this notion of accountability. And the final one is the importance of partnerships. Partnerships like the one we have with WMO, but also the one that we have with OAS, with the IDB, and with the regional integration authorities or bodies in both Central America and the Caribbean. So with that, I finished. Thank you very much for this invitation, and I'm happy to be again here and learn more from the panel that we're going to have in a minute.
Thank you very much, Dario, for the enlightening and encouraging presentation that demonstrated with objective evidence the power of partnerships to pursue essential international processes such as the water agenda. Next, we will turn to our panelists. And may I invite the panelists to please turn on the cameras and to keep them on throughout the panel discussion. The panel will consist of 2 rounds of questions and answers. For the first one, the panelists will have 7 minutes to respond to my questions. And for the second round, they will have 3 minutes to share some key messages. May I first turn to Ambassador Webson. What are the main gaps, challenges, and potential ways forward for small island developing states to increase water, weather, and climate resilience? Ambassador Webson.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fuller. Thank you very much to the colleagues of the WMO and all of the speakers throughout the morning. We have heard a lot of, I'm sure, very strong and informative information as you described, Ambassador, when you came on first. It is very, the questions you posed above, the 2 parts are very, could take up an entire discussion. But let me attempt to dive a little bit into responding to the questions as they are posed. Colleagues, climate information is critical to make informed decisions, and I welcome the Caribbean-specific information contained in the State of Climate report launched here today. The main challenge, you see, for enhancing resilience in small island developing states continues to be the lack of means of implementation. Means of implementation are critical to address the persistent capacity gaps that SIDS, small island states, face, including limited ability to develop, implement, monitor, and manage projects for small populations. The lack of data or high per capita cost of acquiring data for small population, the lack of necessary infrastructure, equipment, and capital, gaps in governance and policy planning, and enabling legal frameworks, challenges with developing and retaining human resources and technical expertise. If we listen to presentations and meetings from time to time, very often we hear that small island states are not mentioned. The challenges they face with all of these issues, and the reason the lack of their mentioning is as a result of the difficulties that even large organizations have in addressing our problems. For decades, SIDS have been calling for adequate and accessible financing based on the principle of climate justice. We have contributed the least to climate emissions, yet we are suffering the most due to its impact, and we do not have the resources to implement large-scale adaptation projects at the speed or required regularity that we need. Only 2%, think of this, only 2% total climate finance provided for mobilized by developing countries was targeted towards SIDS or small island states from 2016 to 2018. That's 2%. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated our financial challenges and placed us in a fiscally precarious situation and position. Our needs have multiplied, and we are continued to take on debts as our economies are hit, and the avenues for concessional financing are removed from us. AOSIS, the Alliance of Small Island States, is leading the charge in pushing institutional reform to enable targeted financial flows to the most vulnerable. This push includes developing a multi-vulnerability index to address eligibility. A growing number of small island states no longer have access to development assistance. In the Caribbean, this list includes Barbados, Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua, Barbuda. Colleagues, imagine that these climate vulnerable islands hit regularly, sometimes every year, by hurricanes, flooding, and/or drought, must now find loans at a commercial interest rate to invest in early warning systems, water resources, we were just hearing about from the speaker before, and other climate resilience. We need strong political support at the highest level to adopt a multi-vulnerability index. The findings of the SPC's recent sixth assessment report from the Working Group 1 are very alarming, as it affirms that we are not on a pathway that will significantly overshoot the 1.5 degrees. We are heading to overshoot the 1.5 degrees, the goal of the Paris Agreement. SIDS will experience a higher cost of climate change per capita if we don't do something. While global financing for climate adaptation continues to be insufficient, we must, my friends, address the systematic issues confronting small island developing states and the systematic transformational solutions must be found now. And now it may be too late if we do not do something urgently, immediately, and with immediate effect. Now must mean today. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Webson. And may I now turn to Minister Manrique. Minister, how do you intend to improve weather, climate, and hydrological services to contribute with climate change adaptation and the ecological transition as proposed by the government of Ecuador? Minister Manrique?
Muy buenos días a todos. Un saludo fraterno desde acá del Ecuador a todos los presentes. Mi nombre es José Luis Naula y lo primero indicarles como director de cooperación internacional, presentarles un caluroso saludo de parte del ministro Gustavo Manrique, quien ha tenido que atender un tema emergente en la presidencia. Sin embargo, me ha solicitado representarlo en este espacio. Señor Secretario General de la Organización Meteorológica Mundial, muy buenos días, señores representantes de Estado, embajadores y de las organizaciones no gubernamentales y autoridades y demás delegados. Buenos días con todos. En nombre del Gobierno del Ecuador, me permito extenderles un cordial saludo a todos los presentes en este importante evento, el cual tiene por objetivo compartir las experiencias de los países de nuestra región, al igual que ser un espacio idóneo para fortalecer todas nuestras alianzas en el mejoramiento de los servicios meteorológicos, climáticos y de agua en todas las Américas. Los servicios climáticos son la base para entender los potenciales efectos del cambio climático, como bien lo ha manifestado el informe del IPCC. Estos servicios permiten conocer tanto el tiempo y el clima, así como la hidrología, información trascendental para conocer cómo ha sido nuestra historia, nuestro presente climático y consecuentemente cómo será nuestro futuro. Los estudios realizados por la Organización Meteorológica Mundial señalan que la relación costo-beneficio es del orden del 10:1, es decir, por cada dólar invertido en los servicios meteorológicos e hidrológicos nacionales, el beneficio para el país o región en la reducción de riesgos y aumento de la resiliencia es de al menos $10. Por lo cual, el reto está en demostrar, en consensuar, en reconocer conjuntamente con todos los sectores estratégicos de la economía cuál es el valor de una inteligencia oportuna y certera que nos guíe en la toma de decisiones y nos permita salvaguardar la vida y los medios de vida de nuestros habitantes, generando una mayor productividad, ahorro y eficiencia en sus actividades. La información que se genera del tiempo y del clima se ha utilizado como una línea base para generar proyecciones de clima a futuro en Ecuador. Esta información se ha generado desde hace unos 4 años con los modelos climáticos CMIP5 y ha permitido realizar estudios de los potenciales efectos del cambio climático para las siguientes décadas. En la actualidad, el Ecuador se encuentra desarrollando las proyecciones futuras con los modelos climáticos CMIP6 de última generación. Esta información se utilizará para realizar estudios de riesgo climático en los diferentes sectores que han sido priorizados en adaptación. Por otro lado, Ecuador cuenta con el Servicio Meteorológico e Hidrológico del Ecuador, INAMI, el cual gestiona toda la información histórica, meteorológica e hidrológica desde 1959 en el país. Los sondeos de las Islas Galápagos que contribuyen a mejorar la comprensión de la oscilación sur del Niño y su influencia en el clima en Ecuador. Mediciones de referencia mundial del ozono en los Andes tropicales a través del uso espectrofotómetro Bewer en Isobamba, en Pichincha. Genera investigación de la hidrogeodinámica de la cuenca alta del Amazonas en cooperación con IRD de Francia. En este sentido, La transición ecológica propuesta por nuestro gobierno buscará que los servicios climáticos retornen a las labores que tuvieron en su creación hace décadas, disponiendo de equipo técnico altamente capacitado, tecnificado y bien remunerado. Por lo tanto, se buscará la articulación y complementación de una base única de información climática pública que permita disponer de la mayor cantidad de datos y series de calidad. Todo esto permitirá que las actividades productivas dispongan de las alertas para la gestión de sus actividades, así como del conocimiento de los potenciales eventos extremos presentes y futuros, involucrando análisis de riesgo climático en el diseño e implementación de proyectos de infraestructura y actividades productivas en el sector agrícola y áreas urbanas. De igual forma, el proceso de mejoramiento de los servicios meteorológicos e hidrológicos es fundamental para adaptar los impactos actuales, que podrían tener graves riesgos en el futuro próximo. Por este motivo, el INAMI, entidad adscrita a esta cartera de Estado, a través de sus laboratorios, busca garantizar el cumplimiento de estándares internacionales, la producción de información sobre el tiempo, el clima y el agua, en especial el monitoreo de cantidad y calidad del agua. Asimismo, el Laboratorio Nacional de Calidad de Aguas y Sedimentos constituye un instrumento de gestión estratégica al nuevo Esquema Nacional de Gestión de Recursos Hídricos, con capacidad para realizar análisis de alta calidad que sirven de referente para establecer la calidad del recurso y evaluar la eficacia de las medidas para su conservación y su recuperación. Por último, me es grato reiterar el compromiso de esta cartera de Estado y del Ecuador para trabajar en conjunto con todos los países de la región en el fortalecimiento de los mecanismos para garantizar el mejoramiento de los servicios meteorológicos, climáticos y de agua en nuestro continente. Muchas gracias a todos los presentes.
Y muchas gracias a usted, Dr. Marte. May I now turn to Ms. Jones and ask her, based on the experience of CLACA, what are the main challenges, gaps, and opportunities in building partnerships to foster technical cooperation for the agricultural sector in the Americas, including the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services? Ms. Jones?
Hello, and thank you very much. I'm gonna switch to Spanish now. Muchas gracias por la oportunidad de estar participando aquí. Los saludo desde Uruguay y estoy aquí en mi rol de presidente de la Plataforma Latinoamericana de Acción Climática Latinoamericana y del Caribe para la Acción Climática en Agricultura. Quisiera comenzar con un poco de contexto sobre esta importancia de contar con mecanismos de cooperación como es PLACA. Los sistemas agrícolas y alimentarios que han sido mencionados en las intervenciones anteriores pueden contribuir a solucionar el desafío del cambio climático y los impactos asociados a los eventos climáticos extremos. La agricultura se menciona como un causante de algunos de los problemas que tenemos en cambio climático, pero es el principal fuente de soluciones que son factibles para los objetivos climáticos acordados en el Acuerdo de París. Un punto, la restauración de suelos agrícolas y suelos degradados puede capturar 51 gigatoneladas de dióxido de carbono de la atmósfera y además aumentar la producción de alimentos y contribuir a la seguridad alimentaria mundial y a combatir el hambre. La ganadería, que es uno de los sectores que es visto como contribuyente al problema de cambio climático, puede, con la aplicación de buenas prácticas que ya se están desarrollando en nuestros países, reducir su impacto, reducir la intensidad de emisiones y reducir las emisiones netas también, cuando los productores aplican prácticas climáticamente inteligentes, que son bajas en emisiones. Una agricultura próspera, inclusiva y sostenible que sea baja en emisiones y resiliente al cambio climático es posible en América Latina y el Caribe, y los espacios de colaboración entre países son claves para llegar a este objetivo. Placa fue lanzada en la COP25 en Madrid en diciembre de 2019 y durante este año se ha trabajado en el diseño del sistema operativo de Placa. Un hito de la gestión marcado por este contexto de pandemia es la creación de 4 grupos de trabajo temáticos que están iniciando su trabajo. Actualmente la plataforma tiene 10 países miembros, que son Argentina, Bahamas, Brasil, Chile, Costa Rica, Guatemala, México, Perú, República Dominicana y Uruguay. De igual manera tenemos 6 asociados y entre ellos está la Organización Meteorológica Mundial, que es uno de los miembros asociados a Placa. Uno de nuestros principales objetivos es vincular a todos los países de la región. Esta adhesión es voluntaria y abierta a todos los ministerios de Agricultura de la región. Placa tiene una gran oportunidad en la región para promover la cooperación regional enfocada en la acción climática para el sector agropecuario. Y si bien la agricultura a veces se identifica como parte del problema, sabemos que también es parte de la solución. Los desafíos más grandes son los que ya han sido mencionados en las intervenciones anteriores. Todos nuestros países tienen dificultades para el acceso al financiamiento, dificultades para la implementación de algunas de las cosas que nosotros sabemos que queremos hacer. Y esos son algunas de las limitantes que también limitan la cooperación entre los países. O sea, nosotros tenemos la visión de que la cooperación entre los países es el camino a seguir, pero a esos espacios de cooperación traemos nuestras propias limitaciones. Como voy a tener que retirarme en breve, yo quiero destacar que Placa es un espacio de encuentro, que considera las dimensiones social, económica y ambiental, que es un espacio voluntario y que queremos ratificar el compromiso de todos quienes somos parte de esta iniciativa, incluyendo al secretariado de Placa, que está conformado por FAO y CEPAL, para promover la colaboración regional. Los grupos de trabajo temático que ya mencioné buscan promover un ecosistema colaborativo e interdisciplinario para fomentar la creación de conocimiento, fortalecer capacidades, compartir estándares, metodologías y procedimientos, y por qué no dar algunos pasos que faciliten el acceso a financiación. En este año, en este periodo de pandemia, que son las etapas iniciales de Placa, se han logrado avances, pero es necesario continuar con este trabajo y lograr que más países se sumen a la iniciativa. Los riesgos que tenemos son globales, los desafíos que tenemos son globales, el impacto es local, pero a nivel de región creo que juntos podemos llegar más lejos. Eso es lo que tenía que decir y lamento decir que no voy a poder quedarme a la segunda ronda porque tengo otro compromiso que surgió intempestivamente por parte de mi ministro, pero comparto las apreciaciones que se han volcado en este foro acerca de cuáles son los desafíos y cuáles son los limitantes que tenemos, y reafirmo la colaboración regional como una de las vías para lograr avanzar en estos temas. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias a usted, señora Jones, and I regret you will not be able to stay with us for this second round. But certainly, we really appreciate the time that you spent with us.
Muchas gracias a ustedes.
And let me extend my thanks to all the panelists for sharing their views and proposals. For the second round, I would kindly request the participants to now share their final key messages or main recommendations for this conference. Each panelist will have 3 minutes, so please use your time wisely during this period. Ambassador Webson, may I turn to you first for your key messages?
Thank you very much, Ambassador Fuller. I will attempt to use my time as wisely. So I focus mainly on partnerships and on the response to the Samoa Pathway. The high-level midterm review of the Samoa Pathway, which is the guide for small states, revealed that there was varied progress in implementation with numerous gaps across the target. With less than 5 years left for implementation of the pathway, we need urgent and consolidated support from our partners, including government, private sector, civil society to ensure that all SIDS can attain their development aspiration. The priority areas of SIDS have been identified clearly during the midterm review to guide targeted support. The SIDS partnership framework, which I am currently a co-chair with Ambassador Fraser of Malta, provides a useful platform for tracking SIDS partnership and identifying where support is needed. The key message here that I have for our partners is to ensure that the support being provided is targeted towards the needs and priorities identified by SIDS ourselves, and that SIDS, small states, can first and foremost directly access the finance and technical assistance. Now that's important. Too often, funding is technically available, but not accessible directly to our own institutions. There are now 17 national and 11 regional institutions among small islands that are program financed from the major funds, the Green Climate Fund, the Global Environmental Facility, and the Adaptation Fund. We would like to see partners using our homegrown capacity to deliver action to the ground on that is lasting and impactful. We hope that to secure more SIDS, specific, measurable, accountable, result-oriented, and time-bound partnerships as we move forward. We look forward to partners responding to this and joining us. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Webson, for championing the cause of SIDS. And I'm sure I can speak on behalf of all of the members of the Alliance of Small Island States that we really appreciate your leadership. May I now turn to Dr. Mate for his key messages? Doctor Mate.
Muchas gracias. Por nuestro lado, respondiendo a cuáles serían las principales recomendaciones para la Organización de las Naciones Unidas, el sector privado y las instituciones en desarrollo y financieras para fortalecer las alianzas en la región y promover la acción climática, nosotros consideramos que el trabajo de las diferentes ONGs, las agencias de Naciones Unidas y otros interesados en la acción climática deben y debemos trabajar, entender que la problemática de cambio climático es transversal a los sectores productivos, al sector social, y que esta problemática no conoce de fronteras geográficas. Esto marca un objetivo en común, alineado a la producción, baja en emisiones y al incremento de la resiliencia climática. La pandemia de COVID-19 nos ha permitido dimensionar lo que implica una crisis global, así como también entender lo importante de los esfuerzos articulados y coordinados. El cambio climático constituye también una crisis y una problemática global, y solamente una articulación entre todos los actores y una alianza entre cada uno de los que tenemos un rol en este escenario nos podrá coayudar para hacerle frente a los efectos del cambio climático. Por otro lado, consideramos que el sector privado, las instituciones financieras, a todo nivel, estoy refiriéndome a la banca multilateral, a la banca nacional, a la banca privada y a los fondos de inversión, deben entender que los recursos estatales no son suficientes para superar esta crisis climática. Necesitamos entender esto y tenerlo claramente dentro del mapa. Únicamente alineando los actuales flujos de financiamiento con criterios de adaptación y mitigación del cambio climático, podremos construir un futuro mejor para todos y para todas, asegurando una estabilidad para las futuras generaciones. Por esto, recalcamos que tenemos un reto como país, como región y como continente. Debemos demostrar, debemos consensuar y reconocer conjuntamente con todos los sectores estratégicos de la economía el valor de una inteligencia oportuna y certera que nos guíe a la toma de decisiones y permita salvaguardar la vida y los medios de vida de cada una de nuestras poblaciones, generando una productividad, ahorro y también una eficiencia en sus actividades. Muchas gracias.
Y muchas gracias a usted otra vez. Ms. Jones had indicated that she was unable to stay with us because of a pressing matter that had arisen. So with that, I would like to, first of all, say that it has been an honor and a privilege chairing this panel of distinguished persons. I wish to thank all our speakers for sharing their thoughtful reflections, experiences, and key messages. All the questions that were posted on the chat will be answered later. This then concludes segment 2 of the conference, and I thank you very much for your attention. Dr. Egerton, over to you.
So thank you very much, Ambassador Fuller, for very ably chairing that high-level segment. And we thank very much also the speakers, Mr. Soter-Abril, Ambassador Webson, Dr. Mate on behalf of Minister Manrique, and also Madame Jones, for all of your insightful presentations and proposals for strengthening partnerships in weather, climate and water resilience for the LAC region, the Latin American Caribbean region. So we still have around 400 people following this event today, and we're going to move now to the third and last high-level segment of this event today. And we would like to invite the chair of the high-level segment is a well-recognized expert in the risk management community with a vast experience in Latin America and the Caribbean region, Dr. Alan Laval, and he's a founding member of the Latin American Network for Social Study of Disaster Prevention, LA RED, and a member of FLASCO in Costa Rica. And the name of this segment is Improved Cooperation and Integration of Multi-Hazard Early Warning Systems, MUSE, in Latin America and the Caribbean. So I'll hand over to Dr. Laval for chairing this next segment. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Paul. And let me then welcome both those listening and those who will speak to us to this segment and thank them for their presence. And I would also like to thank the World Meteorological Organization and the Latin American office for the honor they do me in asking me to chair this segment, where a series of very high-level public figures, colleagues, and authorities in topics will have the opportunity to talk for a limited amount of time. It is actually pleasing to see that we are ahead of time. As somebody born in Britain but raised for 42 years in Latin America, that's a nice contrast. So we've listened in the segment 3 to ideas on strengthening partnership and how to strengthen and the key aspects related with strengthening partnerships to achieve a better resilience in the climate, water and weather scenes. And now we will move on to this third segment and the second discussion session, where what we will be interested in is how to improve cooperation and coordination, collaboration between different information systems related to early warning systems, and how by doing this we can contribute better to overall integral risk management in the region. We have a keynote speaker, as in the last session, and 4 this time presenters. As in the case of Don Carlos, I will not be going into the details of the CVs, who can be accessed on the web page, and also questions should be put on the chat. Let me quickly introduce Minister Joaquin Roa, who is the National Emergency Secretary of Paraguay. And it is a great pleasure to say hello to Joaquin once more. Dr. Alain Lang, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce, it is pronounced 2 ways in English, in fact, the Coordinating Director of the Caribbean Meteorological Organization, Ms. Ligia Castro de Duns, advised the Minister and Director of Climate Change at Mi Ambiente, Panama, and it's nice to say hello to you again, Ligia. Ms. Teresa Cristina, Minister of Agriculture for the Government of Brazil, and Mr. Marcelo Nilo, Scientific Director and Permanent Commission in the Permanent Commission for the Southeast Pacific. So without more ado, I will ask Minister Joaquin Roa to take the floor and deliver the keynote speech on this very important topic. Thank you, Joaquin.
Muchas gracias al doctor Alan Label, gran amigo. Cordial saludo, Alan, desde Paraguay, Sudamérica, y a todos quienes nos acompañan hoy en la sala y acompañando esta conferencia que, por lo que expusieron los que me antecedieron en uso de palabra, creo que es lo que nos tiene que llevar por la senda del buen camino. 18 años, 312.000 muertes, 227 millones de personas afectadas, nos tienen que llevar necesariamente a generar compromisos políticos regionales, compromisos políticos en nuestros países y buscar la cooperación entre el rigor científico y entre las operaciones humanitarias en terreno. La información de los servicios meteorológicos e hidrológicos para el Paraguay, y entiendo que para muchos países, si no son todos los países, son altamente importantes a efectos de tomar decisiones que eviten y reduzcan daños y pérdidas causadas por fenómenos hidrometeorológicos. Finalmente, esto podría llevarnos también y muy directamente a la generación de políticas públicas. Next, siguiente. Las decisiones rápidas que salvan vidas, infraestructuras y bienes deben ser tomadas no solamente con rapidez, sino que con una claridad extrema, a efectos de que podamos paliar el sufrimiento humano, llegar en la inmediatez que nuestros pueblos y comunidades así lo requieren, desde el punto de vista en los cuales ellos están afectados. Por lo tanto, la rapidez en tomar una decisión es muy importante. Los daños y pérdidas deben ser identificados a la brevedad posible para iniciar acciones de reconstrucción. Estoy refiriéndome al paso de una respuesta humanitaria rápida y la observación ya inmediatamente de acciones de reconstrucción con criterios de prevención basados necesariamente en datos del evento que haya generado los daños que estamos evaluando o trabajando. Si fue una tormenta severa, si fue un huracán, si fue una inundación súbita o una inundación lenta, pues bien, las acciones de reconstrucción tienen que tenerlas en cuenta para el futuro. La información provista por los sistemas meteorológicos de nuestros países, principalmente el mío, para generar conciencia y acciones concretas ante los eventos de tiempo y clima, son invaluables. Son sobre esta información basadas muchas de las acciones de los sistemas nacionales de gestión de riesgos que van dirigidas a la población, no solamente para tomar conciencia, sino que también a otros sectores que trabajan con nosotros en los modelos de desarrollo a efectos de que estos sean sostenibles en el tiempo. Las alertas multiamenaza hoy están trabajando en diferentes sectores y con muchas variables. Eso indefectiblemente tiene que llevarnos a nosotros, tomadores de decisiones, a los generadores de políticas públicas, al sector financiero, al sector de la información, a poder evaluar y asimismo verificar de que las inversiones públicas y privadas tengan en cuenta estas variables. Por lo tanto, desde el punto de vista de la gestión y reducción de riesgos, la importancia de la información generada con rigor científico a partir de nuestros servicios meteorológicos nacionales es altamente importante. Siguiente, next. La importancia de la definición de roles, y esto lo conversé muchas veces también con el doctor Label aquí en mi país y cuando nos hemos encontrado en otros países en conferencias, es importante de acuerdo a los roles, misiones y ejes programáticos de los servicios meteorológicos y las oficinas nacionales de gestión de riesgos. Esta definición de roles necesariamente nos tiene que llevar a tener muy claro el qué hace quién, cómo, cuándo y con qué, a efectos de que los sistemas de alarmas escritos con sus protocolos, con sus activaciones, estén perfectamente definidos y puedan ser disparados como relojería suiza de acuerdo a la necesidad del evento que está impactando a nuestros pueblos. Por lo tanto, considero que dentro de los retos que tenemos que tener en cuenta es la importancia de definir claramente cuáles van a ser los roles, como les digo, entre nuestras oficinas nacionales de meteorología y las oficinas nacionales de gestión del riesgo. Bajo el entendido de la amplitud de los alcances, de las amenazas, vulnerabilidades y riesgos, conceptualizados e implementados a través de enfoques holísticos que priman en la gestión de riesgos, esto debería de conducirnos a una mayor cooperación, mayor integralidad, para que esto, como les digo, funcione no solamente en nuestros países, sino que se pueda extender a las regiones y que podamos incluso nutrirnos en las Américas de mucha más información que puedan ser intercambiadas con los servicios meteorológicos y que también las oficinas nacionales de gestión y reducción de riesgos puedan aportar a todo este proceso. Y finalmente, los modelos de desarrollo deben de adoptar diseños, mecanismos y acciones sostenibles en el tiempo. Ya lo mencionaron los que hicieron uso de palabra, mis antecesores. Estas acciones sostenibles en el tiempo deben de observar la mayor cantidad de variables posibles, no solamente clima, sino que también completar la visión holística que nos recomienda la gestión de riesgos en soluciones a largo plazo. Y aquí perfectamente el enfoque multiamenaza de los sistemas de alerta temprana, y es a lo que tenemos que apuntar, nos deben de decir cómo y dónde realizar las inversiones de prevención, las inversiones en infraestructura, cómo debería de hacer una proyección el sector financiero, el sector productivo, la agricultura y muchos otros sectores económicos que contribuyen enormemente a que nuestros modelos de desarrollo en nuestros países puedan apoyar a nuestros pueblos. Por lo tanto, desde la República del Paraguay, nosotros recomendamos esto, creemos firmemente de que el cambio climático no tiene fronteras. La integración regional debe apuntar a eso, al intercambio de información con rigor científico y a que los tiempos de Estado en nuestras regiones puedan combinarse para que podamos tener mínimamente y podamos exportar experiencias exitosas en diferentes materias que representan finalmente lo que nosotros llamamos los sistemas de alerta multiamenaza. Por lo tanto, hasta aquí la participación desde Paraguay. Un fuerte abrazo a todos los panelistas, a los colegas que acompañaron en esta sesión y un gran abrazo, doctor Label, y espero verlo pronto. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias. Muchísimas gracias, Joaquín. por ser sucinto, al punto, al grano y enfatizar lo holístico y lo integral, que creo que todos reconocemos es sumamente importante para el futuro del tema que abocamos. Ahora pasaremos a una sesión de preguntas dirigidas a nuestros 4 panelistas en el orden en que aparecieron en la pantalla en la introducción de esta sesión. Anuncio desde el principio que para la primera panelista, la doctora Lang, haré la pregunta en inglés, para las siguientes 3 en español, y supongo que así serán las respuestas también para que el traductor y las personas escuchando están preparados para el idioma que sale. Entonces, si es posible, Dr. Lang, I will direct the question, which
good morning,
you have
good afternoon. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
We can indeed. It's nice to see you. Nice to meet you. And so with 5 minutes, we would like to hear your response to the following question. The Caribbean region experienced a multi-hazard emergency associated with the Soufriere volcano eruption this year. What are the main lessons learned from this recent experience related to the integration of early warning systems and cooperation? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With all protocols being observed, I would like to greet our distinguished guests and international audience on behalf of the Caribbean Meteorological Organization, and to say thanks for the honor of speaking in this conference. The value of multi-hazard early warning systems was dramatically illustrated when the region experienced the last severe volcanic eruptions that were coincident with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and high impact tropical weather events. What we learned was that strong regional and national institutions that cooperated and coordinated on early warning systems saved many lives and eased the disruptions that were due to the eruptions. The regional response demonstrated the benefit of investments that have been made in improving the forecast capabilities of our national meteorological and hydrological services through impacts-based forecasting, for example, regional research and predictive model development for both hydrometeorological and geological hazards. We also had regional coordination that was established in advance that helped with resource mobilization, cross-border movements of experts and emergency personnel and equipment. And we see right now ongoing the current situation in Haiti, to whom I extend my condolences for those who have lost their loved ones, which presents a much more extreme need for this kind of early warning system and cooperation, as they've been experiencing in succession a tropical storm Fred, an earthquake, and then tropical storm Grace. So at the national level with La Soufriere, we saw the meteorological services of St. Vincent and the Grenadines working in concert with the Barbados Meteorological Service, which supports them with forecasts and warnings. And they recognize the need for tailored information for different sectors. This was really one of the big lessons learned. The Meteorological Service in St. Vincent, for example, supplied weather forecasts to the University of the West Indies Seismic Research Center for planning their on-site activities. There were red alerts given to the fisher folks who were advised of extremely poor visibility in the volcanic ash. There was constant communication with the National Emergency Management Organization and with the local water authority on heavy rainfall, which then would lead to rain-soaked ash, which is difficult to remove. There was lahars, water contamination, which the water authorities could use the information to determine how to lock on or switch on, lock off or switch on water extraction systems. There were authorities dealing with clearing the red zones, aviation services, which needed information on what windows were available for flight operations. This service was also provided by St. Lucia on occasion when ash reached to them. Regionally, the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology provided ash and gas atmospheric transportation model output, which had been developed over many years and now came to fruition in its use operationally. The Caribbean Disaster and Emergency Management Agency, SEDEMA, led the regional response coordination along with the Caribbean Development Partner Group for Disaster Management. Meteor France also provided regional support with, for example, radar monitoring of the ash cloud. We saw the hydrometeorological services, institutions, and emergency agencies continuing to work closely with the Caribbean Public Health Agency and other Caribbean institutions, such as the regional security systems, to support public health policies that maintain public health measures to mitigate the pandemic and this additional hazards that were occurring. We're really grateful for the international support, such as from NOAA, the USGS, the University of South Florida, where colleagues of mine with whom I had collaborated on volcanic ash modeling provided pyroclastic flow models. We saw, for example, the establishment that had been done some time ago with coordination of the GOES satellite, and when do you request rapid scans. So once the situation was evolving on the 8th of April, I coordinated with the Barbados Met Service to make a request for a rapid scan of the GOES satellite over the volcano region. So we had these things that were long established coming into fruition. The Trinidad and Tobago Met Service, which is responsible for the large PRCA flight information region, was involved in coordination internationally. The USAID provided to the CIMH drones, which were then used for monitoring the evolving situation on the ground around the volcano. We note, for example, though, that there is a continuing risk of secondary impacts of the volcano that are ongoing, including the recent Hurricane Elsa, which passed right over the red zone of the volcano. We have then consideration to be looking at the flood potential that increased with debris in waterways and coastal areas, reduced water quality and clogged water, surface water extraction systems, coastal habitats, fisheries, and economic activity that is really related to water sports and tourism along the coast being disrupted by increased turbidity of the water, lower renewable energy capacity that is due to ash deposition and rain-soaked ash, the remobilization of ash and impact on agriculture and plant and livestock both. So these impacts show the need for an integrated, multi-hazard, multi-sector, and multi-stakeholder assessment of the risks of geohazards that are compounded by hydrometeorological events and which present extra challenges for health systems, for example, with more evacuees in shelters, and the threat of damage to actual critical infrastructure by the geohazards. It is very clear that multi-hazard risks require a resilience framework for the Caribbean and Latin America, with cooperation of all sectors of society, down to the last mile. Cooperation in the sharing and application of sound scientific information is vital to our socioeconomic development. And this forum is an example of the engagement that helps. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lane, for such an informative and even short presentation, very to the point. Thank you very much indeed. I will now, following the order that I believe is still true, pass to Doña Ligia Castro in Panama to respond to the question, which, as I said, I will ask in Spanish and not in English, and I presume the reply will also come in Spanish. The question to Doña Ligia is, ¿qué se requiere en América Central para mejorar la coordinación e integración del sistema de alerta multiamenaza? ¿Y cómo está mejorando Panamá en particular la integración del sistema a nivel nacional? Muchas gracias, Ligia.
Sí, buen día. Y saludos del ministro Mercedes Concesión. Panamá es un país muy vulnerable que está expuesto a diferentes amenazas de origen climático, que nos lleva pues a trabajar en la prevención y gestión de riesgo climático. En la actualidad se ha estado trabajando en el fortalecimiento de los servicios hidrometeorológicos. Se creó el Instituto de Hidrología y Meteorología. Éramos el único país de América Latina que no contaba con un instituto. Recientemente se ha creado, se está trabajando en el fortalecimiento de los servicios hidrometeorológicos para generar avisos y hacer predicciones de tiempo atmosférico, suministrar información meteorológica e hidrológica autorizada, confiable y oportuna sobre el estado y el comportamiento de la atmósfera en todo el territorio nacional. Igualmente se ha venido fortaleciendo ya hace unos años el trabajo de SINAPROC, que es la entidad que gestiona el riesgo de desastre y los sistemas de alerta temprana, que recientemente ha publicado el Atlas de Riesgo de Desastres y que está desarrollando hoy día toda una campaña de educación de la población para poder manejar, atender los riesgos de desastre. Se ha fortalecido también la Dirección de Cambio Climático del Ministerio de Ambiente en la identificación y gestión de la vulnerabilidad y el riesgo climático, que permite apoyar y fortalecer el proceso de inversión pública y privada, en trabajo coordinado con el Ministerio de Economía y Finanzas y el Comité de Finanzas Sostenibles que integra el sistema bancario, las aseguradoras y la Bolsa de Valores. Ha publicado también recientemente el Índice de Vulnerabilidad Nacional al Cambio Climático y está por publicar el Mapa Nacional de Riesgo Climático y los escenarios de cambio climático. Se ha estado actualizando también y estará lista en noviembre la normativa de los estudios de impacto ambiental, que van a integrar identificación y riesgo de desastre, identificación y gestión de riesgo climático y vulnerabilidad al cambio climático. Para los 3 con medidas de adaptación al cambio climático incluirá también el cálculo de huella de carbono, lo que quiere decir que a partir de diciembre todos los proyectos públicos y privados que pasen por el sistema de evaluación de los estudios de impacto ambiental pues tendrán que integrar las medidas de adaptación o de gestión de riesgo de desastre. El reto entonces es fortalecer la articulación y coordinación entre las 3 instituciones con otras instituciones públicas. Para ello, el órgano ejecutivo ya ha creado el Gabinete de Riesgo Climático y esperamos que justamente esto es lo que nos permita terminar de fortalecer esa articulación y trabajo conjunto entre las entidades nacionales, las entidades locales y la sociedad en general.
Muchísimas gracias por la exposición y la información y análisis presentado. Muy amable. Pasaremos entonces a dar la bienvenida e invitar a la doña Teresa Cristina, ministra de Agricultura para el gobierno de Brasil, a responder a la siguiente pregunta. Si la doña Teresa está. No estoy viendo.
Está conectada.
¿Está conectada?
Ya está la señora ministra.
Hello. I'm sorry, but the minister is with the president and she's coming in a few minutes. Can she be the next one? Can she jump from now and be the next one?
Well, for me, there's no problem. For Mr. Nilo, I'm not sure. Are we okay, Marcelo, for you to continue?
Of course, Alan.
Oh, okay,
we can do it. Okay.
Thank you, Marcelo. So she'll be here right after the meeting of the president.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. So thank you, Marcelo, for being here and being with us. I will also formulate the question in Spanish, if it's okay. Well, my Spanish, not necessarily Spanish. ¿Cómo podemos mejorar el sistema de información regional para eventos océano-clima, tales como el Niño, en la escala regional? ¿Cuáles son los desafíos principales para la región Pacífico Sureste? Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Alan. En primer lugar, agradezco la invitación a los distinguidos organizadores de este evento. CPP se considera que es un evento de alta importancia regional y global, y creo que estamos en una situación crítica que hay que abordar sí o sí. Antes de empezar con la respuesta, doctor Alan Loval, me gustaría hacer nuestra como CPPS algunos de las indicaciones que dio la distinguida secretaria de CEPAL, Alicia Bárcena, que consideramos deben de alguna manera estar presentes en las discusiones y en las decisiones que se toman. Primero, hacer nuestra la asimetría global. Creemos que eso es un problema serio y que tiene que ver mucho con la imposibilidad de acceso a recursos y financiamiento de algunas economías en desarrollo, evidentemente porque la estructura no lo permite sencillamente, y esas son cosas que de alguna manera deben apuntar a resolverse. El segundo tema que ella mencionó también nos parece relevante, que es el tema de la gobernanza. Creemos que ahí hay una decisión que se debe tomar en agilizar la estructura institucional que permita llegar transversalmente a los distintos focos sociales para poder efectivamente hacer suyo los elementos que puedan mitigar o puedan facilitar la comprensión de los impactos de las multiamenazas. Creemos que a veces no necesariamente la información que llega es la información adecuada para que algunas personas comprendan el efecto que estos tienen. Y por último, el foco de los fondos. También hacemos nuestras las palabras de la mayoría de los presentadores del día de hoy, donde aparentemente existen varios fondos de financiamiento, pero hay un problema de cómo estos se focalizan. Dicho esto, me voy a centrar en responder la pregunta, creo que fue un minuto. Como organismo internacional, articulamos una plataforma de investigación coordinada y sinérgica tanto en tierra como en el mar, a través de las instituciones de investigación, universidades y centros de alto rendimiento de los países miembros de la CPPS, que son Chile, Colombia, Ecuador y Perú. Este año estamos ejecutando el crucero número 24 de manera continua y sistemática, lo que permite levantar variables oceánicas esenciales, y además se ha integrado la red mareográfica a nivel regional, disponible en el sitio web de la CPPS, Alianza GRAS, la que fue lanzada a público durante la última reunión de la COI y que cuenta con más de estaciones integradas en línea desde Colombia al sur de Chile. Somos parte integral del sistema redundante de alerta de tsunamis a través del Sistema Integrado Regional de Comunicaciones. Sin embargo, y aquí va una reflexión, estos avances no son suficientes. Se requieren acciones a escala global para ampliar cobertura, eficiencia y capacidad de transmisión. A veces pienso, esto es una reflexión personal, que además es clave un cambio de mentalidad profunda en cuanto a compartir los datos en todos los niveles de procesos de toma de decisiones que consideran como base de su argumento la ciencia. Esto es solo una parte del sistema. Es necesario compartir una visión ecosistémica que permita la capacidad de observar lo que ocurre de manera multidimensional. Esto también ha sido mencionado por los speakers anteriores. Específicamente buscamos contar con sistemas de monitoreo continuo, estandarizado y coordinado para las diferentes amenazas. Aunque existen sistemas de monitoreo para algunas amenazas, es necesario que estos funcionen de manera continua y sean estandarizados, de manera tal se puedan interpretar en toda la región. Estos sistemas deberían incluir las diferentes fuentes generadoras de multiamenaza, la identificación temprana de algas nocivas, como por ejemplo, y ser sistemas dinámicos para poder detectar peligros emergentes. Contar con cartas de inundación, modelos digitales de terreno y otros insumos para la toma de decisiones. Es necesario mapear toda la región, caracterizarla para lograr contar con los insumos para la toma de decisiones de manera eficiente, dado que los recursos económicos son siempre escasos. Necesidad de una mayor investigación en ciertos fenómenos como la dinámica de corrientes, eventos extremos de oleaje, aumento del nivel del mar y amenazas de orden biológico que a veces no están presentes en las discusiones, como las floraciones de algas nocivas o las especies invasoras. Tenemos algunos desafíos de largo y mediano plazo que son importantes y que quisiera compartir con la distinguida audiencia del día de hoy. El primero es la identificación del costo de falsas alertas. Al no contar con resultados precisos o sistemas de monitoreo y alerta adecuados, puede llevar a generar falsas alertas, las cuales pueden ser incluso más costosas que los mismos dispositivos de las redes de monitoreo. Esta es una experiencia que hemos tenido varias veces en ciertas ciudades de Ecuador, por ejemplo, donde está focalizado la CPPS, pero en otros países también. Este sistema es un tema que hay que de alguna manera observar o tener en el radar y poder medir. Programas de educación, sensibilización y comunicación asertiva a las comunidades costeras. Esto incluye comunidad costera y de áreas marítimas o marítimas como plataformas, navegantes, etcétera, con un enfoque diferencial. Es necesario contar con programas de educación enfocados a cada una de las comunidades que maneje un lenguaje adecuado y dirigido a niños, adolescentes, adultos mayores, comunidades indígenas, etcétera. No todos entendemos lo mismo de acuerdo a las señales que los ven. Es necesario además como desafío tener programas de concienciación y sensibilización a nivel político para la construcción de leyes y reglamentos. Adicional a la manera de llevar el mensaje a las comunidades marítimas, es necesario traducir todo el conocimiento científico a un lenguaje que comprenda la comunidad de dirigentes y políticos de cada país, ya que esto permitirá lograr una mejor gestión del riesgo. Y por último, involucrar el conocimiento tradicional en los procesos de investigación. Se debe contemplar el complementar el conocimiento científico, contrastar los resultados con el conocimiento tradicional. En el fondo, nadie conoce mejor el territorio que quien vive en él. Eso sería la respuesta, Alan.
Muchísimas gracias, Marcelo. Y esperamos la segunda vuelta por rematar con ciertos puntos. Bueno, doy la bienvenida y muchas gracias por su presencia a doña Teresa Cristina, la ministra de Agricultura de Brasil. Y tengo una pregunta que también dirigiré en español, si está bien, a diferencia de inglés. Que es la siguiente. ¿Cuáles son las lecciones principales aprendidas sobre el papel del sistema de alerta multiamenaza y de la información facilitada por el INMET y otras instituciones científicas y técnicas en Brasil, en cuanto en particular a la gestión de la sequía y de los impactos asociados en el sector agrícola? Muchas gracias, doña Teresa.
Eu que agradeço, é prazer participar com vocês desta reunião. Eu gostaria de, em nome do governo brasileiro, começar saudando o Dr. Alan Lavelle, coordenador do programa Flaxo e presidente deste painel, que abordará o aperfeiçoamento da cooperação e integração de sistemas nacionais de aviso antecipado de múltiplos perigos na América Latina e Caribe. Quero saudar também meus estimados colegas neste painel. Começo dizendo que os avisos antecipados de múltiplos perigos são essenciais para a redução dos riscos de desastre em qualquer país, pois ajudam na preservação de vidas humanas e na diminuição de impactos econômicos. No caso brasileiro, é fundamental, sobretudo, para o setor agrícola. O Brasil adotou o marco de Sendai em 2015 e 2030 e passou a divulgar seus avisos meteorológicos com base em sistemas de aviso precoce para identificação das múltiplas ameaças trazidas pelas condições climáticas. A partir de 2015, fomos o primeiro país da América Latina a elaborar e disseminar seus avisos seguindo o protocolo de alerta comum, Common Alerting Protocol. Hoje, os avisos do nosso órgão de meteorologia, o IMET, são disseminados mundialmente, inclusive pelo Centro de Informação de Tempo Severo, o Severe Weather Information Center, da Organização Mundial de Meteorologia. Apenas na última semana de julho deste ano, 2021, devido à chegada de uma intensa onda de frio no nosso país, o portal de avisos meteorológicos do IMET teve quase 1 milhão de acessos. O Sistema Nacional de Meteorologia Brasileiro atua em coordenação com outras instituições federais na divulgação de avisos conjuntos e na coordenação de atividades de meteorologia. Um exemplo disso são as ações coordenadas entre o IMET e a Agência Nacional de Águas. Estamos investindo em uma gestão proativa que permita lidar com seca em seus estágios crescentes de severidade desde os seus primeiros sinais. Como resultado desse trabalho de articulação, foi divulgado, em maio de 2021, o alerta de crise hídrica na bacia do Rio Paraná. Nessa bacia, as chuvas ficaram abaixo da média nos últimos anos e o prognóstico até outubro segue indicando chuvas com esse padrão. Como essa região é extremamente importante para a geração de energia elétrica e também para a agricultura, o alerta foi fundamental para que se iniciassem algumas ações visando a mitigação dos impactos indesejados. Nosso sistema meteorológico também trabalha em coordenação com a Agência Nacional de Águas para o monitoramento específico da seca. Estamos investindo em uma gestão proativa que permita lidar com a seca e seus estágios crescentes desde os seus primeiros sinais. Por último, quero enfatizar a necessidade de atualização e expansão constante da rede de captação de informações meteorológicas, bem como a importância da articulação entre os diversos atores para a otimização de resultados de detecção e gestão dos múltiplos riscos climáticos que estamos enfrentando neste momento.
Muchísimas gracias, señora ministra, y muchas gracias a nuestros exponentes por adherirse más que dedicadamente al tiempo asignado, que nos ha puesto en una muy buena posición para lo demás de la sesión. Yeah, just thanks to everybody, because the adherence to the time limit was strict, and that puts in us a very good position for the next section of this segment, that maybe we could extend from 2 to 3 minutes the opportunity for your replies. And in this next section, as in the first and the second segment, we would like you to reflect in the same order as we did with the first presentation with Dr. Leng, Doña Ligia, Marcelo, and Senora Ministra, to give us some of your final key messages or main recommendations for the future. Mensajes claves y recomendaciones para el futuro. And so maybe I could pass over to Arlene and give her the floor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lavelle. I would like to reiterate some of the points that have been raised by other speakers. I want to return to the earlier question that I was asked with regard to the importance of cooperation and integration of multi-hazard early warning systems. The recent coincidence of hydrometeorological health and geological hazards really dramatically illustrates the need for further investment in multi-hazard early warning systems in the Caribbean. Scientific information from the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services helps us to understand and respond to the primary risks from weather and climate hazards, as well as the secondary risks from the compounding and cascading effects of weather, climate, and water on the other hazards. And these, of course, recently have included geohazards as well as public health hazards. what is really critical is the strengthening of the agencies and institutions that provide weather, climate, and water-related services. That is key to building resilience to the multiple hazards that are faced by our region. Preparedness, such as establishing regional and national coordination mechanisms in advance, ensures operational readiness. Multiple hazards in the Caribbean warrant broad regional and national cooperation and coordination. It also requires data sharing and integration of that data from the various sectors to aid in decision-making. And that will then be used to develop early warning systems with multiple stakeholders involved in that development, including national meteorological and hydrological services, disaster risk and emergency management agencies, regional institutions that are involved in related geophysical sciences, and weather and climate sensitive sectors, the public and the private sector, because private sector is realizing, of course, that their ability to return to normal business is really dependent on their support for disaster risk reduction and investment as well in the Met services, so they can be the champions for the Met services. We also have, of course, academia doing the research and the modeling development, civil society and community organizations that are there recognizing the last mile. They know, for example, church organizations, they know where the elderly are because they bring them to church on Sundays or Saturdays, whatever the case may be. There are social service agencies that are involved in looking after the disabled and the general public. Successful decisions are based on continuous dialogue, co-production and co-design of products and services in collaboration with all stakeholders. Our socioeconomic development depends on sound science being used to make better decisions. The CMO really appreciates and welcomes the support from regional and international partners in the building of resilience in weather, climate, and water-related services in the Caribbean. Those need to be coordinated with the strategic goals of the nations and the regional institutions. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ling. So we will pass to Doña Alicia Castro. It is the same recommendations and last observations on critical points for the future. Hello. Doña Alicia, ¿nos escuchas?
Aquí,
Parece...
ya escucho.
Ah, muy bien, perdón. Entonces sería la... No se escucha.
No le escucho.
¿Y nadie me escucha?
Sí, te escuchamos, Alan.
Dr. Ladau, we can hear you okay, so maybe a problem just with Dr. Castro. We can hear you okay, Mr. Ladau.
Well, maybe we could come back to Doña Alicia and take up with Marcelo with the same question. Si está bien, Marcelo, así.
Ya le estoy escuchando. Ya le pude escuchar, disculpe. ¿Me repite la pregunta?
Sí, es lo mismo que con Dr. Lang, que es un poco de dar sus últimas reflexiones sobre recomendaciones, mensajes claves para el futuro referente al tema que estamos tratando.
En el caso de América Central, por ejemplo, tenemos una política centroamericana de gestión integral de riesgos de desastres y un marco estratégico de reducción de la vulnerabilidad. Se ha pasado de un enfoque reactivo a un enfoque de gestión del riesgo, pero todavía se considera necesario el poder fortalecer un eje transversal e integral con un enfoque de desarrollo sostenible, un enfoque sistémico que nos permita realmente que la Comisión Centroamericana de Ambiente y Desarrollo, el Centro de Prevención de Desastres de Centroamérica y el Comité Regional de Recursos Hidráulicos que han venido coordinando esfuerzos para fortalecer el enfoque preventivo a través del fortalecimiento de la gobernanza de la gestión del riesgo y la gestión de recursos hídricos, puedan armonizar los lineamientos para la gestión de los fenómenos extremos, el uso eficiente de la información hidrometeorológica y la implementación de acciones directas a nivel local. Esta iniciativa contempla ejecutar acciones basadas en las recomendaciones para implementar una política centroamericana de gestión de riesgo de desastre que sea armonizada con el marco de Sendai y que, aprobada para una nueva vigencia hasta el 2030, pueda contemplar un eje de gestión integrada de riesgo de desastre y su relación con el cambio climático.
Muchísimas gracias. Entonces, enseguida pasamos a Marcelo y terminamos con la señora ministra para cerrar la sesión de 2-3 minutos sobre reflexiones finales, recomendaciones para el futuro.
Muchas gracias, Alan. Yo creo que el poder imaginar un escenario futuro, dado, por ejemplo, los datos que presentó hace un ratito atrás Joaquín Roa, efectivamente nos da una enorme responsabilidad. En ese sentido, lo que hemos vislumbrado desde la CPPS va ligado al apoyar el fortalecimiento de los sistemas de alerta multiamenaza, sistemas que no existen en general. Los sistemas siguen viéndose de manera parcializada, separada, y por lo tanto la capacidad de integrarlo es un desarrollo que está recién en curso en algunos países. Esto requiere una mejor tecnología, una mejor capacidad de transferencia y obviamente una buena capacidad de estandarizar los datos, tener las guías, procedimientos, protocolos. Eso se requiere cuando vemos esto desde un espacio regional como es la CPPS. Patrocinar y cooperar, esto es como un mensaje para las agencias de Naciones Unidas, patrocinar y cooperar con el desarrollo de programas sociales para educar, sensibilizar y comunicar el riesgo con un enfoque diferencial. Esto es algo que yo ya mencioné y tiene que ver con saber el público objetivo al cual voy a llegar. No es lo mismo hablar con científicos que hablar con los distinguidos políticos que toman las decisiones. Y eso hay que entenderlo. Cofinanciar estudios de peligros oceánicos emergentes también nos parece que es un tema que debemos mirar en el largo plazo para no sorprendernos después. Y aquí una sugerencia. Nos parecería reinteresante que estas ideas que han salido puedan ser incorporadas como iniciativas programáticas dentro del marco de la década de las Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo Sostenible. Creemos que ahí hay una mirada más holística de lo que ocurre con los océanos y podrían ser un vector importante para hacer un financiamiento escalonado pero integral en la región, aunque sea a nivel de pilotaje. Por supuesto, sugerimos incentivar la asociación público-privada para procesos de financiamiento incremental, incluido el acompañamiento postproyecto. ¿Qué queremos decir con esta reflexión? A veces ocurre que tenemos una inversión para poder, por ejemplo, mejorar un sistema de alerta, pero una vez que el inversionista se sale del sistema con el proyecto, no ha sido incorporado entre los procesos del país que sea la internalización de lo que significa el tener un sistema moderno con los costos de mantenimiento y más que eso, lo que significa cambiar la mirada de la gestión que hoy día se puede tener en función de un proyecto X. Y algunos comentarios, si aún tengo un par de minutos, un mensaje ya en otro lenguaje, un mensaje más directo, creo yo. Nosotros hemos pensado que aquí debemos hablar de la educación para la acción. No es la educación para necesariamente el conocimiento per se, sino para poder actuar. Estamos frente a situaciones que requieren de una acción inmediata. ¿Qué hacer? ¿Cómo hacerlo? ¿Dónde recurrir? ¿Qué pasos sigo? ¿Dónde están los mapas? ¿Dónde están las señales? ¿Dónde está la información que me entregan a mí como individuo dentro de esta sociedad que me permiten a mí apoyar entonces los procesos de adaptación y mitigación? La información que sea de fácil acceso, pero más que todo comprensible. A veces uno mira información y la lee y dice, bueno, ¿dónde está la receta para poder entender lo que me están diciendo? Entonces, esas cosas hay que tratar de evitarlas. Menos interpretación y más asertividad. Y para términos de largo plazo, la idea de integrar de manera efectiva, es decir, rediseñar o codiseñar los procesos de las organizaciones que intervienen en esta toma de decisiones y las organizaciones que dan las señales para el público del día a día y que tome acción y que tenga la concienciación interna de lo que significa estar en un lugar vulnerable, por ejemplo. Personas que no saben que la población vive en zonas vulnerables y esas cosas deben ser de alguna manera puestas dentro del proceso de sensibilidad que estemos haciendo. Lo mismo tenemos que ver con los equipamientos. Creemos que hay un problema de equipamientos importantes a nivel regional. A veces decimos que tenemos varias estaciones y resulta que varias estaciones y parte de esos equipos están con sensores que no funcionan. Hay un problema de intercalibración. Hay cosas que no se ven, pero que sí son necesarias de tener en consideración cuando estemos hablando de algo con una visión integrada, que pensamos que es justamente lo que pretendemos lograr con estos informes que han sido tremendamente enlightening, diríamos en inglés, reveladores, porque efectivamente, y esto lo digo yo como un ciudadano común y corriente, a veces no queremos ver lo que está ocurriendo con el cambio climático y tratamos de pensar que si a mí no me toca, no tengo para qué verlo. Y eso yo creo que es un error garrafal, porque este es un proceso de toda la sociedad. Eso sería, don Alan.
Muchísimas gracias, Marcelo. Y we will now go to our last intervention, last but not least, as they say in English, por parte de la doña Teresa, con la misma pregunta de recomendaciones y lecciones claves, recomendaciones, apuntes claves para el futuro. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Dr. Lavelle. Uma mensagem fundamental que se pode defender atualmente se refere à importância de se aumentar os esforços de diálogo e cooperação entre nossos países, a fim de que possamos enfrentar os desafios urgentes da mudança do clima. O Brasil criou recentemente o Observatório da Agropecuária, uma plataforma que reúne cerca de 200 bancos de dados com informações dos mais diversificados aspectos do setor agropecuário. A base de dados é interativa e aberta ao público e o IMET, nosso órgão de informações meteorológicas, encontra-se devidamente integrado. Outra iniciativa nesse sentido, da integração do conhecimento e dos atores em redes, resultou no desenvolvimento de seguros agrícolas parametrizados para a proteção das atividades produtivas. Em parceria com empresas de apólice de seguro, o IMET, órgão brasileiro para o clima e tempo, desenvolveu o seguro de índice paramétrico, por meio do qual a seguradora e o produtor rural acordam um parâmetro que vai disparar o gatilho de cobertura da apólice. Esse parâmetro é ligado a variáveis climáticas medidas por nossas estações meteorológicas, como, por exemplo, excesso ou falta de chuva, vento ou temperatura. O IMET assegura, assim, a independência e a veracidade das informações, segundo o critério de apuração. O seguro paramétrico é uma solução de gestão de risco, que pode ser customizada para atender todos os setores do agronegócio. Senhores, precisamos seguir firmes com base no diálogo, cooperação e transparência constantes, rumo a uma gestão eficiente das informações sobre o clima. É assim que o Brasil está construindo o seu caminho para uma agricultura produtiva, inclusiva e resiliente às mudanças do clima. Contem conosco. Um ótimo dia para todos. Muito obrigada.
Muchísimas gracias. Obrigado. Muito obrigado. Well, it only remains to me to thank our 4 panelists and Don Joaquin for his keynote presentation. Thank you for the content, the very appropriate analytical content of your first intervention and the most appropriate nature of the recommendations and key points made in the end. And so I say goodbye to you. I thank you. I thank the organizers for the opportunity to be here. And I'll pass the word back to Paul to continue the session. Thank you very much indeed. Good day. Buenos dias, buenas noches, buenas tardes.
Thank you very much, Alan, for excellent chairing of that session. And I'd like to thank also all of the keynote speakers. So Minister Rao, Dr. Lang, from Caribbean Meteorological Organization, Dr. Castro, Minister Christina, thank you very much for joining us, and also Mr. Marcelo Nilo, the Director for the Permanent Commission for Southeast Pacific. This was a very important discussion on the early warning systems in Latin America. It's a priority, as you heard from the WMO Secretary General, for enhancing our early warning systems and capacity. And also financing. So you heard about the systematic observations financing facility, and also the initiatives like CRUISE, which are helping to enhance early warning systems in the region. So we're really focusing on trying to have implementation of this with our WMO members over the next months to come. So thank you very much. We're now moving to the final segment of this event. And this is where we're turning to the presidents of Regional Association 3 and the presidents of Regional Association 4. Now, they've been very much involved in the planning for this meeting, together with our regional office in Costa Rica and also in Paraguay. And I'd first like to turn to Ms. Yolanda Gonzalez, who is the president of our WMO Region 3, to present some key messages and outcomes from her perspective. And then after that, I'll go to Dr. Evan Thompson. So first of all, Ms. Gonzalez, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Muy buenos días, gracias, señor Paul Egerton. Buen día para todos. Primero quiero expresar y aprovechar este espacio para extenderles un saludo en nombre del señor ministro Carlos Correa, ministro de Ambiente de Colombia, que no solo ha estado muy atento al desarrollo de este magno evento, sino que también está muy atento al lanzamiento del día de hoy del reporte del Estado del Clima de América Latina y el Caribe. Adicionalmente, quiero agradecer a los científicos de la región que no solo trabajan día a día para producir esta información, modelamiento, análisis de datos que nos permite hoy en día tener este reporte tan importante en nuestra región. Hago extensivo este agradecimiento a la academia, quienes generan las bases científicas y trabajan día a día para continuar formando a los profesionales que generan este conocimiento en estas condiciones climáticas venideras que tienen unos grandes retos. Con esto además quiero felicitar a la Oficina Regional de las Américas de la OMM, quienes han organizado con éxito este evento, a estos grandes exponentes, tomadores de decisiones en materia de políticas que regulan, atienden todo lo que concerniente al clima. Luego de ser precedida por importantes intervenciones realizadas por perfiles de muy alto nivel en la región, deseo extenderles un cordial saludo y retomar algunas ideas especialmente relevantes para América Latina y el Caribe. El año 2020 fue uno de los 3 más años cálidos, del cual queda constancia en México, América Central y el Caribe, más cálidos en América del Sur, temperaturas que se situaron entre 1, 0,8 y 0,6 grados, superando las medias de 1981-2010. En los Andes chilenos y argentinos, los glaciares han retrocedido durante las últimas décadas. La pérdida de masa de hielo se ha acelerado desde el 2020 en conciencia con las temperaturas estacionales anuales, una reducción considerable de las precipitaciones anuales de la región. Un gran mensaje que queda hoy. La intensa sequía en el sur de la Amazonia, una de las más graves de los últimos años, superó al 2019, convirtiéndose en un año de mayor actividad de incendios en la Amazonia. La sequía generalizada en toda la región de América Latina y el Caribe ha tenido un impacto considerable en las rutas de navegación interior, en el rendimiento de los cultivos, en la producción de alimentos, agravando la inseguridad alimentaria en muchas zonas. Los déficits de precipitación son especialmente adversos en la región Caribe, que presenta una alta vulnerabilidad a las sequías. Los territorios en esta lista mundial de países con mayores eventos. El agua y la disponibilidad hídrica. Los huracanes Zeta y Ota, que nos tocaron no solo a Colombia en categoría 4, unas trayectorias erráticas muy rápidas evolucionando hacia Nicaragua, Honduras, Colombia, impactos conexos. Para el caso de Colombia tuvimos el huracán Iota que impactó la isla de Providencia, nuestro archipiélago caribeño, generando grandes impactos en la región. Nos invitan a reflexionar y a tomar decisiones basadas en eventos extremos históricos de hace un año y de los últimos meses. La gobernanza en un enfoque de la sociedad en conjunto, trabajando, gobernando, multinivel entre usuarios y proveedores de información hidrometeorológica se puede reforzar en el marco de una continua cooperación sistemática. Las emisiones derivadas de la ganadería se podrán reducir entre el 18 y el 30% si los productores adaptan las prácticas aplicadas para el 10 al 25 en las emisiones más bajas de GI. Una agricultura próspera, inclusiva, resiliente al cambio climático en América Latina y el Caribe. La plataforma para la acción climática PLAC para el sector agropecuario fue lanzada durante la COP25 en diciembre de 2019 y cuenta actualmente con 10 países miembros de la región y 6 asociados, incluyendo la Organización Meteorológica Mundial. La resiliencia climática depende de sistemas de información y alerta temprana robustos, accesibles, confiables y con llegada a la última milla. La región necesita fortalecer la coordinación conjuntamente con la OMM y otras agencias del Sistema de Naciones Unidas para promover su integración. Con esto les voy a dejar algunos retos claves para que nos vayamos con esta reflexión a nuestras entidades y busquemos cómo trabajar en el marco de estos. Formación de jóvenes científicos, relevo generacional, financiamiento en torno a los datos, adaptación a la variabilidad climática, territorios insulares de áreas menores de investigación, abastecimiento de agua potable, sistemas de alertas tempranas multipropósito, relación del clima y la salud, seguridad alimentaria, cuidado y protección de suelos, arrecifes, corales, temperatura, precipitación y anomalías que siguen presentándose, evidenciando las precipitaciones que siguen disminuyendo, no solo en sus valores anuales, el estudio del fenómeno del niño y la niña, huracanes, incendios forestales, olas de calor, precipitaciones extremas, avalanchas y sequías. Estas reflexiones son muy grandes retos y es por esto que quiero compartirles algunas de las acciones claves que Colombia ha estado trabajando en materia ambiental. En el marco de nuestro Pacto por la Sostenibilidad en Colombia, liderado por el señor presidente Iván Duque Márquez, hemos trazado metas claras y concisas para contribuir a la gestión ambiental que nos permitirá enfrentarnos a estas condiciones climáticas que hoy se evidencian en este reporte. Dentro de estas acciones, nuestro país se ha propuesto sembrar 180 millones de árboles, implementar una estrategia para el monitoreo de ecosistemas de alta montaña, páramos glaciares, bosque andino, altandino, lograr la restauración de 934.000 hectáreas. Tenemos el propósito de aumentar la capacidad en el número de estaciones automáticas, ese relevo tecnológico, reducir emisiones GI en un 51% y alcanzar la cero deforestación para el 2030. Colombia preparándose en todas estas metas y muchas otras por consolidar con el fin de encaminarnos a la carbono neutralidad para el 2050. Me retiro no sin antes agradecer a todos y todas las personas panelistas en este lanzamiento del reporte del estado del clima en América Latina y Caribe 2020 y la conferencia de alto nivel Trabajando Juntos por la Resiliencia Hidrometeorológica y Climática en América Latina y el Caribe, por sus pertinentes palabras, así como a ustedes, estimadas y estimados asistentes, su interés y participación individual, apoyar a la labor de identificación para trabajar juntos, coordinados con las comunidades más vulnerables. Muchas gracias a todos y me permito enviarle un saludo muy fraternal a mi colega Edward Thompson, presidente de la Asociación Regional 4, quien les hablará a continuación. No me quiero despedir sin citar eventos como este, 30 de junio, 1 de julio, ciclón extratropical sur de Brasil, ciclón bomba, 9 al 15 de septiembre, inundaciones del río Limón en Venezuela, Ecuador, precipitaciones de 90.5 milímetros en 4 horas en septiembre 9, Perú, Brasil, zonas semiáridas con inundaciones, México cada vez con precipitaciones más reducidas sobre los promedios, anomalías en el mes de julio y en el mes de agosto del 2020, el primer trimestre con calamidad, déficit de lluvias en Chile, en Acatama, deslizamientos, inundaciones. El planeta está hablando, las variables, la ciencia, la investigación está hablando, los tomadores de decisión, que estén muy de la mano con los científicos, tomando decisiones ya, porque el planeta está hablando y está gritando. Cambiemos, tomemos decisiones, la ciencia y el conocimiento para la toma de las decisiones. Muchas gracias.
So thank you very much, President of the Regional Association 3, Mrs. Yolanda Gonzalez. Thank you very much for your participation and your efforts to put this meeting together with colleagues from all the region from the NMHS's National Meteorological Services around the region. I'd like now to move to some closing remarks from Mr. Evan Thompson, who's our President of the WMO Region 4. Over to you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you.
A very good day to all government officials, representatives of national meteorological and hydrological services, or various partners from the public and private sector and academia, officers of the WMO Secretariat, and all other partners. I am particularly encouraged by the quality of presentations at this high-level conference for the launch of the report on the climate in Latin America and the Caribbean. In Regional Association 4, we recognize how crucial it is to draw on the work of experts, decision makers, and practitioners from the international, regional, and national levels to promote the importance of investing in the improvement of climate and disaster risk governance and risk management, and determining how best to get that done. The interaction and collaboration between disaster management agencies in our various countries and the respective national meteorological and hydrological services becomes absolutely critical to ensure a consistent assessment of climate risks and then to enable timely decision-making. For the agriculture sector, climate resilience relies on more robust, integrated, and accessible information systems, consolidated cooperation, and innovative approaches for risk transference. Or valuable marine life, coastal ecosystems, and the human communities that depend on them, particularly in small island developing states, are facing increasing climate change related threats from ocean acidification, sea level rise, warming oceans, and more intense and frequent tropical storms. I must remark that Jamaica is now being impacted by Tropical Storm Grace that has moved inland onto our northern coast, even as I speak. And so I had to make some adjustments in terms of where I would be to make this presentation at this time. This brings the importance of this conference to life for us here in Jamaica. Adaptation measures, particularly multi-hazard early warning systems, although being given some attention, are underdeveloped in the Latin America and Caribbean region. Support from governments and the science and technology community is critical to strengthening the development as well as to improving data collection and storage and firmly integrating disaster risk information into development planning. Strong financial support is fundamental to achieving this outcome. Only 2% of total climate finance provided and mobilized by developing countries was targeted towards SIDS from 2016 to 2018. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the financial challenges of SIDS and placed us in a fiscally precarious situation. These climate vulnerable islands have to borrow at commercial interest rates to invest in early warning systems, water resources, and other climate resilience measures. The systemic issues confronting small islands with systemic transformational solutions. The value of multi-hazard early warning systems was dramatically illustrated as the Caribbean region faced a volcanic eruption coincident with the COVID-19 pandemic and tropical cyclones. Strong regional and national institutions that cooperated and coordinated on early warning systems saved lives and eased the disruptions due to the laissez-faire eruptions. The investment made in improving forecast capabilities, regional research capacity, and the development of predictive models for hydrometeorological and geological hazards was of tremendous benefit. In addition, for disaster risk reduction, ongoing socio-economic development depends on sound science being used to make better decisions. Successful user decisions are based on a foundation of dialogue, co-production, and co-design of tailored products in collaboration with weather and climate-sensitive sectors. I must say how grateful I am to all the presenters, the panelists, and the moderators who made the conference so successful today. I thank all the facilitators, in particular the WMO Secretariat, for this sterling coordination. And I am heartened by the excellent attendance today by those who are proof that today was worthwhile attending. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mr. Thompson, and we hope that the tropical storm Grace is not impacting too much on your country, but we are very sure that you can manage the situation with the excellent information. I believe the storm is also on its way to the Cayman Islands after, and maybe also the Mexico and Yucatan Peninsula. So we also, again, send our condolences to the people of Haiti for the loss of life from the earthquake that occurred a few days ago, and also they were impacted on the storm. This was a very successful and groundbreaking report launch, and really a high-level set of information, high-level speakers that were involved in this. And we've had now these regional state of the climate reports. We'll have others now in the future, and we hope that this is going to become really a flagship report that the regions can use to inform both policymakers in the region, governments, and also at the global level, this will be picked up. And I know that the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, is aware of this report, and we will provide information to his team also, as I'm currently in New York at the moment. And we thank also Alicia Barcena for Economic Commission for South America and Latin America, so that this really provided an insight from the point of view of the UN. And we thank also all of the keynote speakers from different governments and ministers that were involved today, and also scientific experts for this. And we know that this information will be used for informing policymakers as we go through in the next weeks to months. A report like this is taking many people, involving many people, and it's a very big production, and there's a lot of logistics. And just to have a big thank you really to, first of all, the National Meteorological and Hydrological Services of the region for providing this key data and the research centers. We also thank, particularly, there's a person on the screen, Rodney Martinez, who was a key to all of the organization of this, extremely hard working over the last months to put all of this together, together with Mary Power's team from the Member Services Department of WMO, and including Felipe and Julian, also Laura Patterson, Omar Badour from Services, and Communications, Vanessa. So we thank all of those inputs to this conference, and thank you also for everybody that joined. There was over 500 participants from 53 countries that were part of this report launched today. And we thank also, as we've heard, the regional association presidents as well for their really great support with their colleagues across the South America and Latin American region. Thank you to Mrs. Yolanda Gonzalez and also Mr. Evan Thompson, who gave those final presentations. So I'm sure I've maybe missed somebody out, but thank you very much for all of your efforts to make this a success. And we thank you for your participation, everybody, today on YouTube. There'll be some communication products that you can turn to. So the WMO website, wmo.int, has a dedicated web page with the report itself, and also the press release from today, and social media aspects, and also the Secretary General's presentation will also be posted there after the meeting. So please go to that website if you'd like further information from today's meeting. So first of all, lastly, it remains me to say again, thank you very much for participating today on behalf of the WMO and all our partners in the region and ECLAC. We wish you a very good day, and thank you for joining us this afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thank you. Goodbye.